Banbridge town in the county down. One evening last July, down a boring green came a sweet Colleen, and she smiled as she passed me by. She looked so neat in her two bare feet, to the sheen in her nut brown hair. Such a coaxing elf, tried to shake myself to make sure I was standing there. From Bantry Bay down to Derry Quay, from Galway to Dublin. No maid I've seen like the sweet Colleen that I met in the county down. As she onward sped, I shook my head and I gazed with a feeling fair. And I says I to a passer-by, who's your one with the nut brown hair? He smiled at me and with pride says he, she's a gem of old Ireland's crown. She's young Rosie McCann from the banks of the Bann and the star of the county down. From Bantry Bay down to Derry Quay, from Galway to Dublin. No maid I've seen like the sweet Colleen that I met in the county down. She'd a soft brown eye and a look so sly, and a smile like the rose in June. And you held each note from her autumn throat as she lifted lamenting tune. At the pattern dance you'd be in a trance as she skipped through a reel or a tune. With her eyes she'd roll and she'd lift your soul, and your heart she would steal and melt. From Bantry Bay down to Derry Quay, from Galway to Dublin. No maid I've seen like the sweet Colleen that I met in the county down. At the harvest fair she'd be surely there, and I'll dress in me Sunday clothes, with my cap cocked right and my shoes shone bright, from a smile for the round nose. No horse I'll yoke or no pipe I'll smoke, till the rust in me cloud turns brown, and a smiling bride by my own far side sits the star of the county down. From Bantry Bay down to Derry Quay, from Galway to Dublin. No maid I've seen like the sweet Colleen that I met in the county down. With a soft brown eye and a look so sly, and a smile like the rose in June. And you held each note from your over her throat as she lifted lamenting tunes. At the pattern dance you'd be in a trance as she skipped through a jig going reel. With her eyes she'd roll and she'd lift your soul, and your heart she would gladly steal. From Bantry Bay down to Derry Quay, from Galway to Dublin. No maid I've seen like the sweet Colleen that I met in the county down. Near Banbridge town in the county down, one evening last July, down a boring green with her sweet Colleen, and she smiled as she passed me by. She looked so neat in her two bare feet, to the sheen in her nut brown hair. Such a coaxing elf, I had to shake myself to make sure I was standing there. From Bantry Bay down to Derry Quay, from Galway to Dublin. No maid I've seen like the sweet Colleen that I met in the county down. From Bantry Bay down to Derry Quay, from Galway to Dublin. No maid I've seen like the fair Colleen that I met in the county fair. Yesterday, all my troubles seem so far away. Now it looks as though they're here to stay. Oh, I believed in yesterday. Suddenly, I'm not half the man I used to be. There's a shadow hanging over me. Oh, yesterday came suddenly. Why she had to go, I don't know. She wouldn't say. I said something wrong, now I long for yesterday. Love was such an easy game to play. Now I need a place to hide away. Oh, I believe that yesterday, why she had to go, I don't know. She wouldn't say. You said something wrong, now I long for yesterday. Love was such an easy game to play. Now I need a place to hide away. Oh, I believe yesterday. Why she had to go, I don't know. She wouldn't say. I said something wrong, now I long for yesterday. Love was such an easy game to play. Now I need a place to hide away. Oh, I believe in yesterday. I give thee all, I can no more, the more the all. My heart and lift are all the store that I can give to thee. A lute whose gentle song reveals the soul of love full well. And then for a heart that feels much more than you can tell. Though love and song may fail, alas, to keep life's tales alive, at least we'll make them rhyme and pass, or kill them if they stray. And even if care and moments flings a discord o'er life's happy sway, oh, let love but gently touch these strings, will all be sweet again. Oh, let love but gently touch these strings, will all be sweet again. Greetings, friends. How you doing? How you doing? We'll just get a quick drink. to wet the whistle. Yeah, how you doing? I said I'd do hang out tonight and get on with a few things. Hope everyone is well as can be expected, I suppose. Which, well, under these circumstances, how can you expect anybody to be well? We're living in such turbulent times. I think the biggest turbulence goes on within, especially knowing all the stuff. We're coming to find out all the stuff that we found out along this path, and exactly what that is. Well, that's down to yourself, isn't it? But for me, there's no escaping. There's no escaping anything, and just drowned in thought. And yeah, inundated, which doesn't seem to be the case for everyone, but I'm sure on some level everyone is feeling the same sort of things. But anyway, let me just quickly go through the songs. I won't go spend too much time. Star, the County Down, Star, aristarchus. Anytime you hear the word star, for me, it's always in reference to the one and only star, aristarchus, and another realization. Walking up tonight, we live in a fractal world, and I pointed this out before with aristarchus. When you examine the picture, every layer is the same as every layer before, just a large version. So, yeah. When I was just thinking about the moon, because we have the sun and the moon in the same sky, and it's almost a full moon. So when it's a full moon, the contour mirror, and you have the sun directly opposite, right? And this has all got to do with the positioning of the sun against that contour. As it's higher, you have no moon. As it moves down in a sine wave fashion throughout the month, you have your second quarter, then your full moon when it's at its lowest point against the virus. You have a direct reflection of the sun, and so I was just thinking about that tonight, and especially I was thinking about a few things. That expression, it's turtles all the way down, and everything is a clue for us. So I'm not sure if that rings any bells with you, but I think the anecdotal story goes that one of famous professors or something was asked about. I must look up that story actually. Maybe I'll do that actually once I get through the main opening. But that's an interesting one. But I was thinking, yeah, what did it mean? It's turtles all the way down. So someone denied what was it? Oh yeah, someone was talking about. I remember it was from one of the Discworld books as well. If you've ever read that, if you've never read the Discworld books, you definitely need to read them. Terry Pratchett, a flat Earth man, was killed off in a timely fashion. Imagine what he'd have to say if he was around now in terms of all of this flat Earth argument. And I'm actually thinking that he's somewhere in chat. His death was fake, right? But Discworld, he talked about a flat disc on top of the back of 4 elephants on top of a turtle. But in an anecdotal story, I think it was Richard Feynman or something. He went through the mechanisms and the workings of the universe and the Earth, especially as the Earth was floating in space. And some old woman, as the story goes, came up at the end of the lecture and called it a load of nonsense. She said the Earth is sitting on the back of a turtle. And Feynman or whoever was said to have said, well, what's the turtle sitting on? And the old woman said, well, it turtles all the way down. So I might look up that clue. So yeah, down there we have the star of the county Down. And Down is county in Ireland. Northern Ireland are the 6 counties which have been separated from the main body of the 28 different counties in Ireland. I think that's significant itself. Ireland is a pretty significant country. Country. People have no problem saying country, but they have a problem saying cunt. Some of you have a problem saying tree. I have no problem saying anything. Every word you use, nigger, is all about the intent behind it. So no one can tell me to not use the word nigger. But there's no malintent behind that. We're all the same kind. And if it was used as an insult or a slight against just a grouping of people, so be it, right? So be it. That's just the way it was. No one likes these sort of things. No one has any right to judge us or diminish us in any way, especially because it's such a superficial aspect as the color of their skin. So yeah, but in terms of the words itself, no one can tell you not to use any words. If that was the case, I'd never say cunt, but I see that a cunt now is a beautiful thing, right? We live in a country for a reason. From the cunt of a tree, right? We live on the back of Aristarchus, the decapitated tree of life. And the cunt actually comes into it again as well when maybe later on I'll get to talk about the symbolism behind Notre Dame or Lady and iPad Go 2 as well. If you've seen that, I mean, I haven't thought about that in a long time, but I have it saved and I've looked at it occasionally because I think I know what's going on. It's fundamentally a journey through the body, right? And I keep talking about these three aspects. Everything's all about you, because it can't be about anyone else. So what describes you describes everyone else, from Jimmy Savile to Jack the Ripper, right? Well, in a certain sense, anyway, because who knows what sort of life forms are out there? Who really knows what sort of types are out there as well? We hear a lot of stuff about reptilians. Well, Eonatan gave a what I consider a very honest and open version or walkthrough or talk through of an encounter he had with a reptilian type on a train, just completely incidental encounter. But that's a different matter. But my point is, yeah, that everything that applies here, that we're learning here, applies to each and every one of us as man. Right? That's what I'm going to say. We think about terms. We have been tricked by words. The silver tongue, sweet tongue devil. We have been tricked by words. So when we get back to a sort of a level playing field, we can all understand what each other is saying. When I say understand, I mean stand under. So when you say something, I know exactly what you mean by that. When we talk about the legal profession and any of the rest of these institutions, yeah, they all use sleight of word. The slippery tongue is in action, and what they say. This is a big tactic as well by ballers, right? When you play a part, not necessarily ballers as well, flat earth, anyone who's put in place, lots of actors on both sides. The whole thing is populated with actors. If you haven't realized that by now, well, I can't help you with that. That's your own business, because you've been given all the clues. Look to the people, no matter what side, who repeat with seemingly infinite patience the same things. Rumpus today, for instance, on Jose's channel, back with, again, just this passion, seeming passion, right? Behind the screen, you never get to see his face, and you call someone, his name is Rumpus, so you call someone Rumpus, right? But what nonsense is this? But anyway, with the same passion, with the same sort of verve, and with the same desire, the same patience as well, that he'll go through all the basic points that he's been through 1,000 times before, without moving on and without accepting any other way of thinking, any other further topics, very limited to certain talking points. And if you think about those, them yourself. If you've been in this arena, just think out loud. Think any at all. It covers them all. The people who will happily stay at the same points, happily talk over the same points again and again, and are loath to or very averse to moving on or to entertaining new thoughts. And especially the people who haven't really changed their mind since you've encountered them first in this arena. That's a big tell as well, because I tell you, I've changed my mind fundamentally and absolutely. And I sort of evolved in my thinking, and all I'm doing here is painting my own picture. As I say, what applies to you, I think applies to me if we're of man. Now, we are in a divided state. Me being a male, I'm divided from the female, and vice versa. The female is divided from the male. As below, as above, so below, right? Or as within, so without. We live on the back of aristarchus, which is the decapitated tree of life, and that's what I was talking about. The fractal layers all the way down. So it's like a slate that every big piece of slate, that every layer is exactly the same as the other layer, and this is what we live atop. This is what we live atop, and this is the part that's sticking out. We live on the land that's sticking out. So if you drain all the water, there you'd have again this pattern just continually going down until you get to the base, which is the center point. And it's not too far down. What did it say? 8 miles? It had to be 8, isn't it? 8 is everywhere. You should be seeing 8. If you're not paying attention to the 8s everywhere now, you haven't been paying attention at all. You have not been paying attention. So what does 8 represent? Something different entirely. It represents you. We are the 8. We meet in the center, right? We are in this divided state. We are the 0, right? Which is no beginning, no end. It's immaterial, uncountable. And we are the theta, the 1 as well. This is the countable, the material aspects to us. This is what the 8 is telling us, and why it's so significant. 8 is the twisted 0, and we're twisted in the center, at the heart. Right? Jesus always points to his heart, because as in a human, Human form, everything must go through the heart. But we are of a greater origin. Right? So we're having an experience here. I've often said this. I think needs must. It's like something we've consented to do. We ventured into the world of division because there's so many puzzle pieces placed before us anyway, there for us to put the pieces together when the time was right. And I think especially post 9/11, the time was made right. Time is being made right now. Well, then we can piece those pieces together. And everything's about context. So once we have the context right, then things start to fit into place for us, the individual, the genuine seeker of truth, right? I've talked about this so many times. When we come to a flat Earth sense, and sorry, I'll get on with it in a second now. A few interesting things to go through, actually. But yeah, when we come to flat Earth, now we can look at everything in a completely different light. Everything appears to revolve around Polaris. So this is a center point, and there's no reason why we can't entertain the thought that everything, in spite of the differences, everything isn't coming from one singular source. We know the different layers. We have the star, we have the sun, the moon, right? The planets, then the stars, and the stars all move in unison. Sun and moon, pretty much in unison, but on a glance, on a nightly basis, everything appears to move in unison. So again, there's absolutely no reason why we can't at least consider one singular source, and indeed there is one singular source to everything. But yeah, it's only when we come to this flat Earth sense we have a different context that then we can rule out, cosmic coincidences like the sun and the moon being the same size, because they're of a certain proportion in terms of massive size and in terms of distance as well. Nonsense. We can now give the childish answer and say maybe one is a reflection of the other, especially when we start thinking then in terms of waters beyond. Before God made anything, there was waters, right? So what is this telling us? This is all allegory as well. This is not the whole story. This is the story of us in this form. The Bible. So the Bible, when we leave, the Bible is left behind. We go into a whole different reality. But yeah, now we can think in those terms. Moon and sun are one's a reflection of another. Why the different synchronizations? Why is there? Well, then we can start thinking in terms of if there's a watery backdrop, a reflective backdrop, then maybe there's a contour to the barrier, whatever you're going to call it. You can look into there, think about the nature. Most of this is thinking about things as well. I think anyway, it's about us, the individual, painting our picture with no one else to paint it for or to impress, right? Everyone is painting your own picture, and you can try and help and encourage people along the way. I talked to a good few people, not a good few, but which was out for a walk tonight, just mentioning the basics about flat Earth and no arguments or anything like that. Just a minute or two talking and say thanks for listening and move on then. And whatever road they take, that's outside my sphere of reality. But yeah, the same thing applies for all of us. And yeah, we can start thinking then in these terms. And I've often said this as well. They keep you mentioning huge distances, and this is linguistic programming as well. So we paint the picture of light years, of thousands or millions of miles, when in actuality we're in a very enclosed area indeed. I look out the window and right there I can see, not now, not particularly now, probably now actually, or a bit later anyway, because it's been a clear enough day. I can see Orion's belt, right? I can see what they call Orion's belt. I can see Sirius, and it looks right there. Now I know that these are said to rotate around. Well, for instance, the pyramids in Egypt are said to align with Orion's belt. So I know in and around the equator areas, they're looking directly up or close enough, and they're seeing Orion's belt. And for me, it's just there. Now, what I do know is we are looking, all of these lights are observer-dependent reflections. But one thing I do know we're looking at, so me now and someone on the same, I'm going to call it meridian, the spherical Earth coordinate system applies to the sky, not the Earth. The grid-like coordinate system, the square applies to the Earth with flat Earth with well, for the most part, but with the North Center at the 0, 0 origin point, and everything then can be marked out in a grid-like fashion, which is indeed how your local ordnance maps work. It's only when you get to international level that you see these spherical coordinate systems. But as I said, everything is reversed. Well, I didn't say that yet, but everything is reversed. So what they've applied to the ground, you can apply to the sky and see if there's any meaning there. But yeah, we have this contour so we'll entertain the thought that we have a contour to the barrier, and the point about Orion's belt and everything being so up close. We're looking at this. So me and somebody, let's say in South Africa, pretty equidistant from the equator, and we're at the same time zone as well. We would look at the same star. Both of us are looking at Orion's belt from a different angle, right? Probably opposite angles. But what we're doing is looking at the reflection point. Right? We're looking at the same reflection point, even though we have our own independent experience of the stars. And as just as for what I'm saying about observer-dependent reflections, as you move, if you have a mirror in front of you, you change your angle, you'll see different things until eventually your angle will be so acute or narrow that you won't see anything. You won't be able to resolve anything. This is what happens when we rise above a certain degree of atmosphere or water particulation, which it all is. Everything is water, water everywhere. When we rise above a certain point, the stars appear to disappear, right? This is because there's no medium now for them to pass through, and also our angle to that reflection point is changing as well. But anyway, it's so up close and personal. So that's on the equator, pretty much I can see. As I said, it looks right there. So if I give the angle, I point to it, maybe like that. And then if I point to Polaris, it's like that. So that's how much I can see from the north center, as I say, to the equator. And I obviously have another 90 degrees if I was on a high point and could see all around me. So I'm seeing a great distance in terms of the sky on both sides. So, in a big sense, we have the whole world in our hands. Forget about the ground. A different sense of perspective applies to when we're looking up at the sky, because there's no contrast. There's no outside of the clouds. So once you get beyond cloud level, there's no contrast there to be able to judge how far or how near they are. And I've often said this before: the Kármán line distance is given as 60 miles. And Kármán, right? Karma police, Kármán, Meru Kármán. So the Kármán line distance is given as a vague distance of 60 miles or so. And I say, well, as we apply all of this to a flat Earth, that's the highest point from Earth to contour. In around 60 miles. It's given as a vague sort of area, give or take 2 or 3 miles, 50, 57 to 63, because again, I think it reflects reality. Just in a mirrored sense, we have an electromagnetic barrier emanating from Aristarchus, holding back the waters beyond, and it's not a solid barrier, it's a permeable, invisible energy barrier. And so that's in terms of how I think. So at its highest point, this is the equatorial areas or equatorial areas. Then we have a 60 mile high perpendicular distance from ground to barrier. As we move north or south, towards the north or towards the south in opposite directions, that barrier decreases at a fixed contour. I think here in Ireland, but maybe halfway between the equator and North Pole, distance is probably something like 40 miles, something like that. That's my thinking. Not in and around, which that's a very tiny distance, isn't it? When we think in terms of known distances on ground, here to South Africa is probably 5,000 miles or something like that. But anyway, getting back to how up close and personal it is, this is how the ballers use their linguistics to sort of bamboozle you and have you thinking in monstrous distances that have no place in reality. So again, when we bring everything back to our personal experience of things, we can think in a lot simpler terms, and anything now that's coincidence, we can offer up a childlike answer to it and see where that takes us. And once again, I'm not trying to prove, especially at this stage, I'm definitely not trying to prove anything to anybody. It's gone well beyond that. I mean, but yeah, if you're interested in answers, no matter what you accept, you're still going to have to ask the questions and entertain certain thoughts. And for me, anyway, all of this is tangible. All of this is tangible. It's like I talk about the repeating cloud patterns. That's all tangible. You can go outside your door and see these patterns. What you have to sort of untangle in your mind is that you're looking at the same thing maybe from a slightly different perspective, or maybe a vastly different perspective. You can from the underside one time to the top left from another time, smaller sometimes, bigger at other times. When you get that into your head, yeah, these patterns will jump out everywhere at you. And once you move on from there, you'll realize that the patterns that you see in your sky are the same as your brother sees across the water, across the Atlantic or Pacific, somewhere else in his sky, because it's the same pattern that's been expressed. And again, everything goes back to the one and only star, which brings me back to the first song, talking about that. Star at the County Down, the one and only star, aristarchus. Yeah, that's one of the first songs I learned. Started the County Down, and I said I'd play it. I haven't sang it in age, maybe 20 years or something. So any slight pauses or errors there, that's my own fault. But a very nice song, and yeah, I could easily see a bit of accompaniment there, and maybe a little different sort of take to it, at my own touch. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. Guitar sounded okay to me, for what it is. I bought it in. I actually bought the guitar in a thrift store, or one of these charity shops. I think it was 25 euros, but I bought it for a friend of mine, Tony. I've seen him in ages, but hopefully he'd take some sort of interest, because all you have to do is learn 3 chords, and it's an amazing friend. Once that's your guitar, it always sticks with you, and you never forget one another. But no, he never took to the guitar, so I took it, and well, it's my guitar now. But it's because it's so small, it's more like a child's guitar, but it's difficult to maintain a good tune, or to get a good, decent sound off it. But definitely sounded okay to my ear. As okay as it gets, anyway. So yeah, that started the County Down. I could speak about certain things there because it occurred to me. I don't remember most of the lyrics. The gem in old Ireland's crown, yeah. The Emerald Isle, emerald green. That's the heart chakra. That's the color of the aurora borealis. And I mean, this is what I'm saying. I could talk forever about my thoughts on these things. This is where we see the aurora and the aurora borealis and aurora australis. These lights, right? This is where the barrier meets the ground, meets the waters beyond. This is what's happening. So you have a sort of a bigger intensity there, and we experience that as up in the aurora borealis anyway, is mostly green lights. So green is the heart, the color of the heart chakra. The solar plexus, yellow, and yellow also is the color of Jesus, right? So solar, Jesus being the sun, being Jesus the Son is within. Aristarchus is the sun. What's in a name? Well, everything. If you're telling a story, right? Aristarchus is an anagram of Christ's aura. Christ's aura, A-U-R-A, Christ's gold sun. All truths for us. They don't prove a case by themselves, but they're worthy of noting, and moving on from seeing what else supports the idea. But yeah. No offense to anybody. I mean, I think we have to move beyond. We have to be willing, first of all, to let everything go. Second of all, no one has to listen to what I'm saying or what others. You don't have to listen to what anyone says. If you're out for the truth, well, that's your own path, and we're wise enough to get all this sort of stuff. We can't relate to anyone outside ourselves today in a big sense. Think about your closest, nearest, and dearest. Well, ask yourself, what are they thinking right now, wherever they may be. You have to admit you haven't a clue. You only know what you're thinking, and so that's difficult enough. But to be asked to relate to somebody in the desert now, for instance, of a different existence completely, an impossible thing. Your mind couldn't cope with it, right? It could never land on anything solid. So it's the same thing with Jesus or any of these biblical stories. This is all a reference to us, you as the individual. Jesus is within us, right? That power, or that greater truth, that greater divinity, that's in our hands to strive towards. And we can go in 2 directions, which is up. Jesus points to his heart and he points upwards. You've seen definitely lots of representations like that. This is because upwards, the Adam, the immaterial center, the head to us, Eve downwards for the V, which is the groin or the material center, the regenerative center. And we need, this is where the O comes in. You need a connection, right, outside of the heart, because the heart, remember, is specific to humans in this human form. So yeah, this is the story of us and our connection to the greater power, the creator, if you will. You know, this is it. And as I say, we're constantly, I'm sorry for saying as I say again and again, but we're constantly encouraged to externalize everything. Yeah, we can't do that. Can't do that. You can do that to a degree, but you have to be honest with yourself. And this is the whole point as well. We were always meant to come down this path. So we shouldn't be afraid to let anything go at all, as long as your heart is good. I mean, we don't wish any harm on anybody. A belief is a belief, right? But maybe there's more to it, and there certainly is more to it. Yeah. Anyway, that's Star of the County Down. Yeah, the Emerald Isle. Irish. I am Iris H. There we have the H again. The iris, when Ireland's eyes are smiling. Yeah. 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 Okay. Yeah. That song sort of reminds me of the poem 2LL or Roses and Rue by Oscar Wilde. Brilliant poem. Will I read that? I'll read that actually. Let me just read that. In a sense, so some of the sentiments remind me of it. So let me just read that quickly. And let me just go on here. I think everything is grand, isn't it? So let me see if everything's coming through. Sentiments. Yeah, that's good. Let me just turn down the high definition there. If I turn down to 144p, I look grotesque. So I'll turn down to 240p, and that'll do okay. No, I look okay. I'm fine. I'm fine with how I look and how I'm fading away or whatever. Geez, I tell you about the sun yesterday. I was only sitting out in the sun for maybe half an hour. Just lay down. I came in, massive red color in my face, full of life again. That sun has increased in frequency and all in preparation for something as well. As I say, the sun is aristarchus. So aristarchus being the decapitated tree of life. What's in store for us? I say 9/11 was all about two becoming one. So we're going from, which is what the Titanic represented. Now remember, Notre Dame also occurred, or the orchestrated affair, definitely orchestrated. It's all symbolic. It occurred on the anniversary of the sinking of the Titanic, which is the 15th of April, 2012, or 1912. Now, the Titanic never sank, right? So there's no ship at the bottom of the ocean. There's no better place to hide sweet fuck all than at the bottom of the ocean. So the Titanic never sank, but we're fed a narrative, and ingrained within the narrative then ultimately is the one becomes two, right? When the ship breaks up and settles at different positions at the seabed floor. So one becomes two. Then we had a century of wars, right? First, second, and all the wars in between. A lot of fakery involved. Dave J says no one dies in any wars ever. So this is a bit extreme, overly extreme, because yeah. Not that I've experienced anything, but I've definitely met a few soldiers and asked them their experience. One sort of agreed with him when he was telling me he went to Afghanistan, and all he was doing all day was standing around, but he's gone marching to and fro, watching poppy fields. He never saw anything happening. But another guy then went into detail. He told me he was bayoneted through the shoulder, and he also had to throw a dead body onto another guy who had pulled a grenade, and that took the shock. As far as I remember, that's the story. But I said to him, listen, bud, I don't mean to be rude now. I don't say I don't believe you, but I found out about so many fake things. Do you mind if I see your shoulder? So he said, no problem, yeah. And he pulled down his top and showed me his collar and massive scar. So obviously something had gone through, and showed me the back as well. So yeah, conflicting. So I wouldn't go as far as Dave J, but definitely so much fakery involved. Pearl Harbor was fake, for instance. We know about the 6 million Holocaust fakery, Holocaust burnt offering. This is how Earth was destroyed by fire the last time, and the inundating waters had put out the fire. Alice in Wonderland tells us this story, especially Alice Madness Returns, which is the video game version of Alice in Wonderland. But yeah, the Earth was destroyed by fire. Aristarchus decapitated, and all of its limbs, that were holding up the barrier. When Aristarchus collapsed, then the energies were still flowing, so you have a collapsed bubble at the top, and the sun was birthed, and also the dodo was birthed. The dodo was disc covered in 1598. So as far as I'm concerned, this Earth we live on in its current form is 420 years old. 421 this year, right? So Easter or Ishtar or Istar or Aristarchus Sunday falls on April 21st this year, which is 421, and it turns out that it's 421 years since the discovery of the non-existent dodo bird in 1598. What are the chances of that? Again, something worth noting, and a house isn't built on one or two bricks, but all very interesting. And yeah, as I said, the dodo came into being as the changing face of the land post inundation, post destruction. Also, the dodo represents the divided state of us. But yeah, isn't that very interesting? 421 years. I was talking to someone tonight who was at their phone just outside, and he was shouting on Liverpool in a Champions League match. I'm sure you two, if he's in the chat, will have been watching that. But fuck it, wasn't. If you remember some of my hangouts last year, I did the double last year, so I was sure that the Liverpool were to do the double. So what I did was I had a fiver, right, and I went into the bookies, and without looking at the horse or anything, I just put it on number 8, and even I can't remember the name of the horse. It was very significant as it goes, but that won, and whatever price it came, I got I think about 35 euros back. So I put that 35 euros on Liverpool doing the double, the Champions League and the league double, I think it was, or was it the cup? One or the other, and it was a double because Liverpool is the home of the dodo, which is Paul or Fall by Paul McCartney. This is what the change is all about. We are in a divided state, which brings me, look, to clear up the second song, which is Yesterday. That's what Yesterday is about, reminiscing about a time that came before. A time of unity, and yeah, it's the story of all of us, again, us being torn from ourselves, our other half. That's what we go seeking our whole lives, that sense of wholeness and that missing part to ourselves, which is where the female in general cases come in, but whatever it is, whatever your sexuality is, down to you. But yeah, that's what Yesterday is primarily about, a time before this time of division. And yeah, Liverpool, home of the Beatles, Beatel. Yeah, I've talked many times about AT. There we have the upper tendency, right, to the recognition that we are immaterial, and this is what Pinocchio is going through as well. The vices and the virtues, right, and the learning process to take us from that dead wood. Pinocchio's dead wood, right, made of dead wood. This is why Jesus was a carpenter. Well, a carpenter deals in dead wood, decapitated wood. When I talk about a decapitated tree, we remember that the root system can, if you were to see the tree as a whole, can often, like an iceberg, far outweigh what we see above. So as decapitated, you cut it from the ground, you leave a stump. So this is where, yeah, the Beatles in Liverpool. Liverpool pigeon was said to be the closest living relative to the extinct dodo bird. So we know the dodo bird didn't exist. So yeah, they made this connection on purpose. Everything is driving us back to Liverpool. And I don't want to go into too much detail. So the point of that story is, aren't they doing your mama's same day? They're doing great. They're doing well. They're in the quarterfinals, 2-0 up on aggregate, looking to get into the semi-finals, and they're at the top of the league with Man City with a match in hand. So I was going, fucking, wouldn't that be hilarious if well, it wouldn't be like, but if Liverpool won the double last season, I think it was set to make 1,500 quid out of it or something. It was good odds because they did the double. But yeah, if they were to come in this season, fuck it, I could do with that money having the bob. But another one of those things, right? I didn't mind. It was more for the symbolism. So I was out by 1 year, if that turns out to be the case. And of course, last year, as I say, 420 years since the dodo. But now I'm thinking, time's confused, and get me back to Easter Sunday. Yeah, Easter Sunday, Ishtar Sunday, Aristarchus Sunday. You might say, how do you get from Easter to Ishtar? Well, you can hear it phonetically. Ishtar, I star, Aristarchus. We'll remember that the solution to the Queen's puzzle, Alice in Wonderland, probably one of the most significant books outside of the Bible, outside of a few others that you'll ever read, because it's so loaded with clues. But one of the final puzzles, one of the final puzzles, before Alice received her crown, right? The crown in the top of your head, crown chakra, right? So it's all about the journey upwards into the heart of the material. When we die, we leave our bodies behind. Everything material we leave behind, but we take our greater selves with us, which I think is housed within the pineal gland, right? Or maybe not. I'm not stuck on that, but can't see inside, obviously. But we know there's an immaterial center to all of us. So that'd be funny if Liverpool did win this year. But yeah, going back to Easter Sunday. So last year, 420 years, Easter Sunday fell on April 1st, which was Fool's Day, or Dodo's Day. A dodo is a fool, right? Now this is traditional date to celebrate the new year, and how much sense it makes, right, when everything's coming into bloom, as opposed to the dark, dreary, dead nights and days of winter. So when I'm talking about 420, the dodo, when exactly does the new year start? As I said, I'm counting from 1598. So yeah, here we are, 420 and 421 years it will be come this Easter Sunday. So as I said, it all connects to Aristarchus. Dodo came into being, we came into being with the decapitation of Aristarchus, and the sun as well, the sun, the moon, the stars, the planets. And I've often told you to remember, or encourage you to remember, what we do in terms of Christmas time with the tree, right? The decapitated tree, we place it on an X, Xmas, Christmas, right? Christmas, Christ-am-s. Remember, we're in a divided state. Jesus was the carpenter who dealt in dead wood, right? So something has to die before Jesus could make a living. But yeah, we can see how it all connects. And so Easter Sunday, just lost my thought there for a second, my train of thought. We're just connecting it all for you anyway. And I went off on that tangent regarding the Liverpool. Yeah, but this is how everything connects to Liverpool. So it would be hilarious, wouldn't it, if Liverpool actually did the double this year. And I was right all along, but I was wrong all along. And as I said, the only reason I bet that is because of how the story all started to merge together. And indeed, the story is told us in every sense and in every form and fashion. There's clues presented to us to sort of make our way along the path. So I was going to. So that's yesterday covered as well. Yeah, that's the story of all of us. And just one man pining for a last love. This is the story of us descending from a prior state. I call it probably leaping into this wonderland of division. We remember that Alice starts off her journey in an idyllic situation, and she sort of conjures into the dream state, something that she had applied, or something that did apply to her direct reality. She was just bored and she ventured off. So very interesting connections. And we are Alice. Alice is all of us down the rabbit hole. So we've got to sort of make our way out by realizing, well, who are we? Alice chases, and yeah, that's Flat Earth Paradise. I encourage you to. I was going to probably show it and comment on it, but maybe that'll be for the next time, because I better move on. I don't want to be on too late. But yeah, there's a very interesting latest video on Alice in Wonderland and its greater significance and connection to this whole experience we're having. I suggest people look at that. But yeah, before Alice receives her crown, that's where I was getting back to. She was given a riddle by the White Queen, and well, we solved that riddle at the time. We didn't see it solved anywhere else, or mentioned anywhere else, the answer, solution to that riddle, and we solved it. And the solution was oyster. or I Star. The chapter before, if I remember correctly, was when Alice met Humpty Dumpty. He was talking about wordplay, and all throughout the theme of Alice through the Looking Glass, wordplay comes into focus. So yeah, when we think of I Star, the pearly gates, I Star, oyster, right? Very similar. Um, so I Star, aristarchus. So there it is, right in the heart of it. There's a deeper significance to aristarchus when we apply it to ourselves, which is arise, tar of cus, chus. Church is church. What might that mean? Well, there we have it anyway, in the center of aristarchus, arise, tar, ch, us. In Irish, it's arish, tar, cus. I never realized this until recently as well. Arish, tar, cus. Arish means again, tar, tar huam, come to me. Arish, tar, huam, come to us. Again, come to us, the second coming. So that has the personal application to us. Remember, there's always two stories: the external and the internal story. Anyway, um, yeah, I'll just move on. As you know, I come off and on. I could talk about anything. Like yesterday here, I could talk about that for ages. Just in terms of the greatest significance, and then the connection to Paul Fall, the Beatle Paul and Fall were the dodo. Again, this divided state, this Patricia Steer, I see he is. And I mean, I went through that fucking 6 or 7 years ago and came out the other end. No, it is all the drama and all the sort of conspiracy candy is laid for you, all clues as well. But we're always meant to come out the other side and realize, well, there's a greater story here being told. And well, yeah, when we have the eyes to see and the ears to hear, then all these pieces fit into place. But yeah, that it's coming to the fore again is interesting, isn't it? These are central characters, and we'll remember, right, in a history of man, um, the Beatles album, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, is #1 on nearly every listing, #1 album in history. So that's a massive thing in itself. So that's when we open our eyes, we can pay new attention to this. One of the main men in flat Earth research, doing interviews left, right, and centre. He's been on the BBC. He's been on American TV. Is Mark Sargent. Mark Sargent tells us that he was a conspiracy man who had no internet presence except for putting out what they call a prepper's guide. A prepper is someone who prepares for the worst in terms of stockage, storage, in terms of a government breakdown or whatever, similar catastrophe or disaster. Mark Sargent is hardly that type of character, is he? So it should stand out immediately. But we can, again, with the wordplay, Mark Sargent, Prepper, Mark Sargent, Prepper, Sergeant Pepper, Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. When we look into Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, it's a walk through Alice in Wonderland. It literally is, from the start for the first song to the last song. I hope, yeah, that's fine. So yeah. So it's along this path. So anyway, the final solution, yeah, I Star, I Starcus, and yeah, the pearly gates, everything sort of pieces together. Anyway, I don't know how I got off on that tangent, but as I said, I could talk about these things. So I'll just move on. And before I go into chat and just say hello, let me just read the poem I was going to say. Start the Countdown reminded me of. I sang this as well. I put my own music to it, and maybe sometime I get around to actually recording it properly. It was a beautiful poem, and once again, Oscar Wilde. There we have the Americar, Oscar Wilde. Yeah, very significant, and a reference to pastimes as well. It sort of connects with the song yesterday, but Started the County Down reminded me of the tone of it. So let me read it anyway. I won't play it. Could we dig up this long buried treasure? So yeah, the name is 2LL, or Roses and Rue. And Rosie was the name of the girl from the start of County Down as well. So what might the rose represent? Well, that's a different matter. But anyway, let me read the poem. 2LL. Could we dig up this long buried treasure, worth the pleasure? We never could learn love's song, we are parted too long. Could the passionate past that has fled call back its dead? Could we live it over again, worth the pain? I remember we used to meet by an ivied seat, and you warbled each pretty word with the air of a bird. Your voice had a quaver in it, just like a linnet, and shook as the blackbird's throat with its last big note. And your eyes, they were green and grey like an April day, but lit into amethyst when I stooped and kissed. And your mouth, it would never smile for a long, long while, then rippled all over with laughter 5 minutes after. You were always afraid of a shower, just like a flower. I remember you started and ran when the rain began. I remember I never could catch you, for no one could match you. You had wonderful, luminous, fleet little wings to your feet. I remember your hair. Did I tie it? For it always ran riot, like a tangled sunbeam of old. Of gold, these things are old. I remember so well the room and the lilac bloom that beat at the dripping pane in the warm June rain. The colour of your gown, it was amber brown, and 2 yellow satin bows from your shoulders rose. And the handkerchief of French lace which you held to your face had a small tear left to stain, or was it the rain? On your hands that waved the dew, there were veins of blue. In your voice that said goodbye was a petulant cry. You have only wasted your life. Ah, that was the night. When I rushed through the garden gate, it was all too late. Could we live it over again? Were it worth the pain? Could the passionate past that has fled call back its dead? Well, if my heart must break, dear love, for your sake it will break in music, I know. Poets' hearts break so. It's strange that I was not told that the brain can hold in a tiny ivory cell God's heaven and hell. Okay, well, I didn't probably read that quite. Probably, I'm actually used to singing that. If you want to hear me attempt to sing it, you can just go back to one of my hangouts. I won't do it now, even though I feel like it actually, but I won't do it now. I might do it in a bit. Just to LL or Roses and Rue would be the hangout. But yeah, beautiful poem. But again, reminiscing to this time. And I guess the question is to you: like, could you live it over again? Were it worth the pain? Could the passionate past that has fled call back its dead? It's interesting. How tough as this life is, when it's time to go, we'll cling, we'll cling like anything to it, or we'll try to, right? But could I live it over again? Worth the pain, I guess, but a very difficult decision. It's a really very difficult path, all the way, you know. But yeah, okay. I hope you enjoyed that. Okay, I'll go into chat and I will say hello, and I'll continue. I'll finish off Pinocchio, and I probably won't make too much of a comment tonight. I'm still sort of even it sink in, especially after picking it up, after letting it down for so long. But I have a good idea what's going on, so we'll see how it finishes, and I should be through with that 15 minutes, and then I'll just get on to a few more things. A couple of very interesting things, actually. I'll play a video, and yeah, I'm going to talk a bit through it. Maybe plan to get off about 12, so maybe another hour and a bit. Midnight Gardener, how you doing, man? I haven't seen you in ages, bud. Hope you've been well, taking a break from all your worries. Spirit of Longhorn, Longthorn, how you doing, bud? Good to see you as well. Hearn Bronkovich, another one I haven't seen in ages. I hope you're all well. Stephen Watson, how you doing, bud? Flatter with Music, fam, how you doing? I think you're in I think you're in Canada, actually, right? Yeah, not quite sure there. Still got mixed up with Flatter Dude there for a second. Yeah, good to see you. Chris Hayes, another man I haven't seen in ages. How you doing, Chris? I hope everything's going smooth in chat. We sort of don't have many wrenches there, and none for any other reason. Just I forgot to take them out. But everything seems to be going smooth enough. You're an artist. How you doing? Okay, you're an artist. Wrong. It's the third eye, the pineal gland. Pete's gland is swollen, quite simple. Okay, I don't know what that means out of context. Yeah, I said that's what everything seems to be honing in on, the pineal gland. So we have 3 centers. We have the pineal gland, we have the heart, and we have the groin center, the testicles, the penis, if you will. And isn't it funny? The thing that connects them all, the spine, is an anagram nearly of both the pineal and also the penis. It's a perfect anagram of penis, but very close to pineal as well, with the L inserted and the S missing. So we need to replace that S. But yeah, you're an artist, a piss taker. I'm guessing that's your name. But it's all the same character. So if you're taking the piss, off you go. As long as you don't step over the mark, right? And start throwing piss and shit at everyone else. You're welcome here, bud, and we won't take you too seriously. Maybe, or maybe we should. Maybe you're genuine. You're in therapy, yeah. I had a glass this morning. Actually, I had a glass this evening as well. It didn't bother me in the slightest. I want no cancer for me. Um, it works externally, right? As an antiseptic, disinfectant. Why do you think it wouldn't work internally? How many sick people do you know at the minute? How many people are dying of various illnesses? Cancer being the big one. Yeah, well, it's not me, right? But anyway, moving on, and there's more potent liquids within your body than your urine. That's for sure. Getting all the way back up to your tar. I mentioned earlier on, aristarchus. Aristarchus is come again to us, right? Or come again to me. So the second coming. Tar is an archaic term for an able-bodied seaman, or seaman, right? And Aristarchus is encouraging us to get our seamen to make that journey. And this is what Resurrection Sunday is all about. This is getting it back to basics in terms of my understanding. Anyway, this is why we fast during Lent, and this is why we receive Holy Communion on Easter Sunday. Arise, tar, kuos, Church. Cus is also a diminutive or a shortened version of the name Jesus in Spanish. I looked that up. So arise, semen of Jesus, right? The body of Christ. That's what it is, bud. If you're disgusted by that, well, that's your own business. These getting to the very core, very heart of our matters. None of us would be here without the semen meeting the egg, right? So again, everything that applies to me applies to everyone else of the same kind anyway, and that division is there between male and female, but the sperm has to meet the egg, right? There's no two ways about it. And that's by imbuing. So we're connecting everything via the thought, right? It's the thought that gives that imbued power. Remember, the human child is the greatest miracle known to man. So therefore, whatever is involved in the construction of the human child is even greater, right? So yeah, that's just take the piss all you like. You're an artist, piss taker, but yeah, you're welcome. Realtor, how you doing? And Hogarth, good to see you, bud. Sam Nobody is here. Sam Nobody says Easter's day changes every year. Exactly. Yeah, that's what I mentioned last year. It was Easter 1st or April 1st, and for me, you remember the calendar was changed back in 1818, sometime in the 1800s. I think it was more like 1870s or something like that. And everyone last 15 days or something. Well, I'd say this was all in preparation for last year to have the coincidence of Easter Sunday with April Fool's Day, which is traditional New Year, beginning to the New Year, resurrection. So Jesus died and rose again. Again, the whole earth comes to life. Well, I'm not saying the whole earth, but certainly the northern hemisphere, northern aspect of our realm comes to life, and the whole cycle begins again. So Easter falls on, if you want to be exact, it falls on the first Sunday following the first full moon following the spring equinox. And it's very close to a full moon tonight, the next couple of days. Well, I'd even say, is it going to coincide with Easter Sunday? Very close to it anyway. Very close to it. So again, none of this is incidental. Everything here is a construct, and everything is playing out to a greater schematic or a greater scripture, right? Everything applies to you and nobody else in that sense. Miss Ali, how you doing? And I think that's pretty much everybody. If I missed anybody, I know there's a few hangouts on tonight, so I mean, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Just do what you do. Why don't you do what you do when you did what you did to me? 2.8 mile mushroom. Very good, man. How you doing? Yeah, good to see you. You have some very interesting ideas as well, and everybody should be open to the ideas of anyone else, and where you gravitate towards. Well, that's down to yourself. It's down to yourself. I know there's been lots of people following, or not lots of people, quite a few people following my hangout, so they will have been aware of my journey through all of this, whereas other people joining in at a later stage will think that everything I talk about is absolutely crazy. But there isn't. There's a coherency and consistency to what I'm saying, and it's not about. I'm not set out to. So Baldy Cats is here. Yeah, it's not about proving anything to anybody. Why would I spend my time trying to prove anything to someone like Baldy Cats? And I don't mean that in a bad way. I'm sure his heart is in the right place, and he's playing this role of adversary for probably the very best of reasons. That's the way I sort of look at it now. And all of these antagonists who will just deny everything. They can't. You see, the thing is, they can't. First of all, they're following a script. They can vary. They can have their own personality, own twist and take to it, but they can't vary too much from the central core, right? They're free to do that, and this is the suit. So I talked about that earlier on. Language. This is the suit that they wear, and I think they try not to lie. But if they say one word and you interpret it in a different way than what was meant, then the plausible deniability there, right? Whereas, yeah, if they try not to lie directly, I think this is a big ploy or tactic as well. So you have to be aware of that. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So okay. Okay. 1 minute. Yeah, we have to be aware of that, and yeah, we can move on. We can recognize the game that's been played, and then move on to the greater picture. But that doesn't mean you can't entertain these people and bring your own thoughts to the table. It's very easy for me to confound these people at this stage, not because I'm anything, above and beyond, but because certain things are so obvious, and what I reduce things down to is the movement of the Earth. If the Earth doesn't move, then the ball doesn't enter the equation of thinking in the first place, based on the universal behavior of water, which is flat but still at similar temperatures and pressures. So you don't have to go beyond that, and that's why you never hear of any of the musings of Einstein or Newton or any of these big heads on what if the Earth is flat, or sorry, what if the Earth? That's the basic question. What if the Earth was still? After that, then you can wonder about the shape of it. But first of all, let's see if we're moving or not. If we're not moving, then it has to be flat based on the universal, again, behavior of water, similar temperatures and pressures. And someone like Baldy Cats can't answer that. So as he wiggles around it and moves on into more in-depth things, well, I don't forget, because I've been doing this for so long. All right, 1 minute, turn off. Yeah, back. Okay. Yeah. So anyway, I don't need to waste too much time with that. I realize that once you get beyond nailing down the basics, then everything's a venture into la la land. When we think about a spinning ball, Earth is given. Now, there's another sense to how the Earth is actually spinning, but that's how that comes back to how you define the Earth. You tell me what you mean when you say Earth, or you're a flat Earth, or it can simply be just the ground beneath you, right? Because that leaves a whole gaping black hole, a whole hole in your picture, right? What's for the pictures not to present anyone of yourself? So yeah, Earth is everything. Earth is the Earth beneath us, but also everything within the confines of the system. And when we think of it in that sense, then the Earth can be said to be flat, convex, contoured, spherical, concave. It just depends on which aspect, which part of the elephant you're describing. So yeah, when we come to the earth beneath us, though, yeah, once we know that that's stationary, then we can say the ball, in terms of the sphere given, is not the truth. But maybe rather than throw it out completely, maybe there's another interpretation to it. Everything is reversed. So when we apply that law of inversion to the sphere, what might we learn? And I think a whole hell of a lot. So when they talk about empty space, right? What's the opposite of empty space? Well, heavy water, right? Heavy water. So it's heavy waters beyond, saline waters beyond. And this is what gravity is as well. People talk about, on flat Earth, yeah, gravity is nonsense. It's not proven. Well, gravity is a force, but in reverse, flipped around, gravity is a pushing force from above, and not a pulling force from beneath. And it's associated with this barrier that holds back the waters beyond it, this collapsed barrier. We live in a bubble, a collapsed bubble. And yeah, the nature of the barrier is whatever the best way, aristarchus energies, whatever, electromagnetic energies. And yeah, what we call gravity is the reactionary force to this actionary force holding back this waters beyond. Again, we're in a broken system. So when Aristarchus was intact, we had the tree below and above, right, connected. So look at the cover of Manly P. Hall's Secret Teaching of All Ages, and there you have exactly that illustrated. We have a tree intact below, and we have this divide above. So we can understand gravity in that sense. And, it makes much more sense when we understand it's water everywhere as well, reflective surface above. Then we can see a different rhyme and reason to the system we're in. And we can understand, at least for myself, again, I was just speaking for myself, understand that we are dealing with reflected artifacts. We know as children that water is reflective, right? What else? So yeah, this is about the different pieces now that we can paint and we can put together into our picture. But yeah, but anyway, you're welcome, Baldy Cats. I don't have too much regard. My own son is in this education system, and I hate it. Like, I just, everything they've been told is lies. But I have this faith that ultimately everything is for the good. I was talking to two young people today, and they're very similar age to my own son, who I haven't seen, my beautiful son. I haven't seen in so long. But yeah, they'll lead us home. They're so open-minded. They had already heard about the flat Earth, and they didn't laugh it off. They didn't laugh it off, and I just encouraged them to take it more seriously and prove everything for yourself, and realize that this is your home. You are the authority here. You are the king or queen on the land. There's no higher authority under God. When you claim to be a sovereign, you're a sovereign under the Creator, right? You're sovereign under the Creator, and then you're not subservient to anyone. The people who are supposed to be subservient to you, who take on that role, well, then you can hold them to account, or at least in theory. Anyway, what to do in practice, that's a different story. What the fuck to do, what the fuck to do at all. But in that sense, yeah, I abhor what you stand for, Baldy Cats. I abhor the thoughts of putting innocent minds and innocent children into classrooms where they are force-fed nonsense from the moment they enter to the moment they leave. And they'll probably pick up a lot of psychosis issues from all of these different and sundry interactions with who knows who, I certainly, I wouldn't say I picked up psychosis, but I certainly had my share of troubles in school, bullied for a long time, and it's just something you have to deal with when there's two or three guys, a class ahead of you, and you're on your own. You have to deal with it, right? And eventually, when you sort of, I remember when I did fight back, it was when my brother came to the school. I can't think it was 6 or 7 or something like that. My brother came to the school, a bit more than that, probably 8. Whatever, yeah, I went down for a good while. My brother came to school, and then they started bullying him. And then I tore into one of them, and they stopped. But then someone else bullies you, but you just deal with it, and you know that you wouldn't do to them what they're doing to you. But yeah, this is school in its current sense is an abomination. Like what we're doing to our children. Who else can we blame? Really, our own ignorance, our own lackadaisicalness, our own distraction, our own, I don't know, lack of courage. I don't know what it is. Remember the Wizard of Oz? The lion is looking for the balls, right? looking for those gringotts, the cowardly lion. So this is ourselves, right? The Tin Man was looking for the heart, and the Scarecrow was looking for the brain. These are the three aspects of us that we need to get connected together. We need everything in its proper order, and then we need to bridge the three. So again, all in one, we are the three, right? The lion, the Tin Man, and the Scarecrow. Dorothy is the door to Theo, Toto, right? Toto. And the Emerald City as well, Emerald City, the city of the heart. Ireland is the Emerald Isle. When I went to America, a few funny coincidences. I went to North California, where I ended up in the Emerald Triangle with Maggie. How you doing, Maggie? If you're listening in, the Emerald Triangle, and the two nearby cities were Arcadia and Eureka, or not cities, towns. So it was very interesting, very interesting, especially because I sing a song. Acadia is paradise. It's the North Center. And all was over and the spirit was broken. Hills were smoking as the men withdrew. Stood on the cliffs, oh, we watched the ships slowly sinking to their rendezvous. They signed a treaty and our hope was taken. Loved ones forsaken, they didn't give one damn. Try to raise a family and let the enemy running down on the plains of Abraham. Gideon driftwood, gypsy tailwind, all my hope, land of snow. Gideon cold front, what a way to ride, oh what a way to go. And some returned to motherland. The high command had a way, and some stayed on to finish what they started. They never parted, they just built that way. We had kids living south of the border. They're a little older and they've been around. They wrote in a letter, life is a whole lot better. So pick up your things, children, and come on down. Indian driftwood, gypsy tailwind, call my home, land of snow. Canadian cold front, what a way to ride, oh what a way to go. And zero for the day becomes a threat. My clothes are wet and I was drenched to the bone. Been out ice fishing, too much repetition makes a man wanna leave the only home is love. Put it up on the docks at around 6 p.m. Nothing to declare, all we had was gone. But down along the coast, oh, I think the most. The people that said, you gotta keep moving on. Indian driftwood, gypsy tailwind, all my home, land of snow. Canadian cold front, what a way to ride, oh what a way. Everlasting summer filled with ill content. This government has cast away. This ain't my turf, oh, this ain't the season. Can't think of any reason to remain. Woke up in the sugar fields down in New Orleans. It was evergreen up until flood. You could call it a number, point you where you're going. Set my compass north like I've been in a while. Canadian drifter, gypsy timber, they call my home ground of snow. Canadian cold front, way right on how to say to Acadia, je demande, neige Acadia, c'est de l'âme au soleil, je rêve Acadia, tiddle-um, 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 je rêve Acadia, tiddle-um, 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 je rêve Acadia, tiddle-um, 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 je rêve Acadia. Nice one. I didn't expect to play that. Just I was in Arcadia, Arcadian driftwood. Driftwood, yeah. What does that represent? Some sort of decapitation of trees, right? Yeah. All of these stories are telling the same departure from a prior state. Too much repetition. What's the line? Too much repetition makes a man want to leave the only home he's known. This is the story with Alice when she ventures into Wonderland. She was bored, you know. She had it all, an idyllic setting, and yeah, just out of sheer boredom, she entered into this whole new world of wonders, or into Wonderland anyway, which is where we're all located at the minute. We're in the Globe Theatre, Shakespeare. The crafted character, he didn't exist, right? So the same hands that wrote the works of Shakespeare, wrote the Bible, wrote the works of Lewis Carroll, helped along or wrote the works of the Beatles. It's the same hand that's operating throughout time, if you will. That's my version. That's my story anyway. We don't know the power or the forces involved. And, you know, when it comes to all of these famous names, I don't believe the vast majority of them existed. Beyond 1598, you can forget about it for me. But post 1598, the likes of Newton never existed, Copernicus, Tycho Brahe. No, it's more storytelling. It's Michelangelo, you know, and all the different arts. Yeah, it's the same hand that's crafting everything. And that's where I'm at. I don't know where you're at. So, yeah, Shakespeare, shake that spear, holy spear it. Yeah, time is me it, right? Alice gets led down the rabbit hole, chasing the rabbit. Flattered Paradise goes into that, and yeah, the rabbit is late. It's late, you know, the white rabbit. It's late. It's late. It's very late, and yeah, Alice follows it down the rabbit hole, and yeah, it represents time. Here we are, stuck in time, caught up in time, and as I said, yeah, time is an anagram of me it, right? So I talked about the hourglass, the measurement instrument, the measuring instrument for time, where the sands of time flow through the hourglass, H-O-U-R or O-U-R, hourglass, and there it is in the shape and the form of an 8, right? Again, all as it applies to us, we can't externalize things, we can interpret them, and be careful not to take the literal. Absolutely, we have to be very vigilant in that sense. It's easy to get led astray. So, okay, without further ado, hope you enjoyed that. Why did I mention that? Yeah, because the Emerald Isle. So the Emerald Triangle is where where we ended up. The weed capital. Was it Hobart? Hobart? No, I think the weed capital of California anyway. So yeah, good old times. Um, okay, I don't know how I got onto the Emerald Isle, Ireland. When Irish eyes are smiling, the Isle of Man, right? A lot of stuff goes back to her eye. When's the last time you looked in your eye? I have a picture there. I'm not going to bring it up now because I want to get on with Pinocchio. But it's a close up of my own eye, and when I look at it, I see aristarchus, and you can sort of compare these things yourself. Get a picture of aristarchus, look at your own eye, and you'll see the crater-like um, uh, structure to it or look of it, right? And this reflects the internal reflects the external. And if we think of the North Center as the pupil or the iris, and then we have the flat Earth and surrounding it. So yeah, there's no separating the external from the internal or the internal from the external. We are the world. As I said, Aristarchus is everything without, and continues on all the way to the heart of our matter, the very center. Okay, let me finish off Pinocchio. Actually, yeah, let me have a cigarette first. And some interesting, yeah, let's hope by what time is it? 20 past 11. Yeah, I'll go through these videos. And I especially want to comment on the second one because I haven't seen it. I've seen the first one, and I think you'll be in for a wonderful surprise if you haven't seen it. But in the meantime, I'm going to share screen and continue on Pinocchio. So as I said, I'll just read because I don't know how many more hangouts I'll be having. I don't imagine too many. So I'll try to get to the fucking point of everything. But as you can see, I get easily distracted. But hopefully bring everything back around and express what I meant to express in the first place, or focus, get back around to focusing on what I started off. But I'll finish off Pinocchio. I probably won't comment too much, leaving it for the next time until it sort of settles in and I get a greater picture formulated. So let me share my screen. Okay, continue after I have a cigarette. Now I guess I could play. Yeah, fuck it. I'm going to take the risk. It's not a risk anyway. This is for analysis purposes, and so if Tom York or Radiohead have a problem, I hope maybe whoever's involved with them has been tuning in somewhat, recognizes anyway. Tom York, Radiohead are the biggest clue givers, first of all, and Tom York, we're told, it was nicknamed Dodo and Salamander when he was a youngster. All clues for us, once we have the proper context. I pointed out before that Tom York and Radiohead, their album Kid A, remember A pointing upwards towards the immaterial center. Kid A was the soundtrack to the 102-minute movie that was presented to us as live on 9/11, but was pre-prepared long in advance. I say back to well, at least 2000, because the album came out in 2000, and I have that sort of clarified in a different sense as well. I've told the story before about being on the above top secret, and I was, you do my usual encouraging people. So you can start off a thread yourself, a theme for the thread, and then you can sort of pay attention to it and moderate it. But one particular guy came on this thread where I was talking about 9/11 media fakery, and he had a related story, but sort of unrelated. He was coming at it from a different point of view, different angle. He'd heard me mention, or he read what I had to say, and he told a story about him being a counselor or some sort of parole officer, and how he had this particular guy who came into him and told him this miraculous story, how he had experienced 9/11 before it happened, and how he was in prison. They're all taken away on a bus for the day. Again, the commenter was relating this to me as his experience, and the prisoner was telling him this, that they were all taken away on a bus for a day for some task or other, and while they were waiting to find out what task it was, all delighted just to get out of the prison, they were put in a room with tea and biscuits and a television, and he swears that 9/11, exactly as it transpired, happened about a year and a half previously. It was something along those lines. And of course, no one could believe him. When he got out of prison, and I'm just sort of filling in gaps as well, but the gist of it is there. When he got out of prison, he started telling everyone about 9/11, and obviously the towers were still there, so it must have been some sort of parallel reality. And later on, it transpires that exactly what he had, or he felt he had experienced via the television, came to pass. So the solution is simple. The 9/11 movie was prepared in advance. It was shown to an audience, not a target audience. It was shown to a specific audience, and reactions were gauged. And whatever the nature of the convicts, or not convicts, whatever, they're probably falsely imprisoned men, they would have a tag attached to them. So if they were to tell such a fantastical story, who'd believe them? After all you should do is go into New York and see that the evidence is tagged there, so you must have been dreaming. Who would believe them? You know what I mean? So brilliantly dark plan. Imagine the poor fella, honestly. But yeah, I remember that story or that post from a thread I started over above Top Secret. So yeah, what was presented to us as live was definitely pre-prepared, and this would explain then how Radiohead's Kid A could be the soundtrack to that 102-minute movie when the second plane hit. Or sorry, when the second plane hit, to when the second building, which was hit first, fell. And there's a reason behind that sequence as well. Why didn't the first one fall first? The reason for that, and then the reason has got to do with Sirius, and where exactly Sirius, the star, was SIRIUS. So I am, I and you are S. So we need to put the two S's together. We think of the S in terms of the 8. So when we overlap the S and the mirrored S, we get an 8. So yeah, Sirius, when viewed to Washington Park arch, you could see the Twin Towers. It's been captured in a few movies. That particular spot there's a fountain there, Fountain of Youth, UTH, U theta, the Fountain of Youth. Yeah, when viewed to the arch, you could see the Twin Towers in a sort of nice, neat little presentation. And yeah, when viewed from there, the very moment that the first building, which was the second building to be hit, fell, if you could dim the lights, turn off the sun, then the stars in their positioning, Sirius would have been located directly above the second tower, as I said, which fell first. Then 35 minutes later or so, whatever, from the same vantage point, if you turn off the lights again, Sirius would have moved a certain amount of degrees, and lo and behold, where was it? Directly above the first twin tower, or the first tower that was unverted, right? That was hit second. Sorry, yeah, no, that was hit first, so it fell second, right? So you know what I mean, anyway. But yeah, Sirius being a central figure here. It turns out that from the K9 unit, the first K9 casualty was called, well, you've guessed it, Sirius. You can check all of these things out. I don't make any big case about it, and lads, I could make a big case about all of this, right, and how it connects to flat Earth. But isn't it interesting that Radiohead, having the soundtrack to this, the most I mean, who hasn't heard of 9/11 Earthwide? The greatest movie ever made. So Radiohead, that gelling of the album with the movie is a very significant role itself. So that we find out that Tom York, his nickname as a youngster was Dodo, and I say more especially Salamander Foucault's limb, and with time regrows. So I think this is the hopeful part. The Dodos comes from destruction, Salamander then the rebuilding, and these are the times we're in now, the rebuilding stage. And I think Notre Dame and its symbolic collapse represented that. It represented the coming out of the body. If we look at iPet Go 2, that is a walk through the body, from the head to the vagina. This is where the Jesus-like figure is birthed out of. And just after he comes out, if you remember that, on the boat, just after he comes out on the boat and snaps out of his trance, if you will, you see in the background Notre Dame collapsing as he comes out of the vagina, as he is rebirthed for the second coming. But okay, let me. Yeah. So again, look how much I diverted away here. So this is the song. from that album, Kid A, song number 10, the last song. And once again, let me just go ahead. There you go. Oh, hang on, did I? Oh no, I think everything's coming through there. Good, is that okay? Yeah. Oh, excellent. Okay. Yeah, Paris. So I just saw someone writing Paris in flames. Paris, Polaris. The Liberty Flame is in Paris. You know the Liberty Flame at the top of the torch of Lady Liberty, which is not a lady, a tranny Liberty. The original is in Paris, and it's also, that's a flame. It represents a few things. It represents the central peak of Aristarchus. It represents the heart, and again, it represents that eternal flame, which is the name of JFK's memorial, which is remarkably crater-like. When we look at JFK, first of all, fake death, if you didn't know, obviously as well at this stage, but more symbolic is the killing of the king, and it's associated with King Arthur and Camelot as well. Aristarchus is an anagram of see Arthur as is. Zol, Arthur's a Christ-like figure. So Christ, Jesus is the Son, and 12 disciples, the 12 constellations, right? So same with Arthur and the 12 Knights of the Round Table. But yeah, Radiohead, motion picture soundtrack. This is song number 10, I.O., right? The theta, it is the theta for you with the circle and the one. So 0 represents the immaterial, right? The uncountable, and the 1 represents the material or the countable, quantifiable. But song number 10, how fitting, motion picture soundtrack. So yeah, this is for a non-profit. I'm playing this for educational purposes. Actually, I encourage everybody to to take heed of the words and put them in the context then as well. So 9/11 was all about two becoming one. This is Sirius, right? Again, Sirius. So we bring the two S's together, two becoming one. So the two twin towers were unbirthed, and in their place then a unified whole. One world trade, where beneath one world trade you find the Oculus mosaic, in Chambers Street, subway station, Chambers of the Heart. But this is motion picture number 10. I'll shut up and play. This is a beautiful song, and for years before I knew any of this stuff, this is my favorite song, and I guess everything for a reason now. So let me play it, and look, if there is any problem from Tom York or Radiohead or their management, or just get in contact or leave a message. Yeah, no profit to be made from any of this. And as I said, I will give the third omitted verse, right? Remember, if we place it in that significant role, just let's take everything I'm saying as true, but then we can see there's an extreme significance to everything here. So I'll give you the missing verse at the end, and I think it's very revealing. It's sort of comforting in a way as well. So hopefully this is coming through okay, and I'll play it now. Yeah, no. We're back to the start, and okay, press play. I have it at 72 as well for a reason here. No? Okay, I'll sing the last verse. So this is the omitted verse, and how very revealing. I'll quickly just go through the lyrics, right? Red wine, sleeping pills, help me get back to your arms. Cheap sex and sad films, help me get where I belong. I think you're crazy, maybe. I think you're crazy, maybe. Stop sending letters. Letters always get burned. It's not like the movies they fed us on. Little white lies. I think you're crazy, maybe. I think you're crazy, maybe. I will see you in the next life. And then here's the omitted verse that played elsewhere. And I only found out about this later on after coming to some of these realizations. It's in D as well, so. Angel, torn apart at birth, blameless and lifeless, I hardly recognize you. I think you're crazy, baby. I think you're crazy, baby. I will see you on the next. Nice. Hopefully that came through okay. Let me just go back. Excellent. Did that come through okay? Let me just go back a little bit here. Yeah, let's see. Hopefully it did now. Yeah, that seems to have come through round. Nice. So again, make of it what you will. Beautiful song, but the missing or the omitted verse. Beautiful angels torn apart at birth, limbless and lifeless. I hardly recognize you. I think you're crazy, maybe. I think you're crazy, maybe. I will see you in the next life. So how revealing is that? And as I said, when we put that into context then of 9/11 and that album, Kid A, being the soundtrack to it, Kid a Goat, Go AT, Go AT. Don't be scared of any of these things. See what they signify, see or symbolize, and well, stop sending letters, right? Spells, words. It all comes down to words. And what picture you paint with what word you are exposed to. This is the core of it. And yeah, go AT. A again, the upward tendency. T is the top, the tip top. 12, 12. Midnight, midnight. capital T and capital T together form the symbol for pi, which is 3.14, which is the relationship between the circumference and the diameter, which is the relationship between the 0 and the 1, which is the relationship between the immaterial and the material, or the uncountable and the countable. And again, my riddle, how does 0 divided by 1 equal 42? Well, yeah, 0 is the circumference, 1 is the diameter, and the circumference divided by the diameter is 3.14. In mathematical notation, the dot represents multiplication, so 3 multiplied by 1/4 is 42. 42 is the answer to life, the universe, everything we're told, but when we reverse it, we get 24, which is 888, which is the number for Jesus. We have 3 centers: the heart center, the head center, and the groin center. 3 is the magic number. So anyway, yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. And as I said, for educational purposes and a bit of entertainment as well, I hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, I can move on. And yeah, since the chat is up, you can see your own comments there. It seems like there's no delay. You're talking about Dell, is that okay? Well, Dell is grand. Dell material, you notice the way Dell will never go beyond the basics. As I said, you can use that as a benchmark. You can kind of say, look, if you can recognize that people are playing their part without judgment. Definitely hold that all of these actors, both ball earth and flat earth actors, are ultimately acting for the very best. It's the only way I can look at it. If not, that's on them, right? That's on them, but we can recognize the limitations. Del and Gav backwards is Vag, V-A-G, vagina, which is the heart of the material, and Del, which is D-E-L, L represents the material, matter, I-L. That's where Del fits right in, and has his forte, like, you know, dealing with what we can observe, what is tangible to us, and not venturing too far beyond that, so we can look elsewhere for the other 2 aspects to be covered. Yeah, the heliocentric, Helio centric model is all about, in terms of how it fits into the greater Big Bang model, it's all about the material universe. So there's nothing beyond, there's no rhyme or reason beyond. This is when we come to sort of evolutionary theory, everything interconnected, as I say, to the globe Earth. And yeah, Hell represents this nothing beyond the material, which is only half the story. This is why everything must go through the heart, because we are neither the immaterial or the material. We are the human, H-human, 8 human. H is the 8th letter. Just to mention, as I mentioned, 24 is 42 reversed. H2O, water, that fundamental. The H is the 8th letter, so H2, which is 8-8, and O is the 8th element. So there we have our 8-8-8 as well encoded. Again, keep your eyes out for 8-8-8s. Yeah, I mentioned I had the volume up to 72. Well, 72 is 8-8-8, 8-8-8, 8-8-8, and we're told there were 72 names for God. So, yeah, but otherwise, yeah, Dell does a fantastic job at dealing with what he deals with. But we have to remember, yeah, there's more beyond that. So you get the message, and there's no need to dwell. No need to judge as well. So that's my view on that. Let me. No, I'm not bashing him, Baron. I've said what I've had to say to Dell, and I was even on with him the last time and had a reasonable enough conversation. I mean, I realized that there's boundaries there, that he's not comfortable, and I said that to him. He's not comfortable going beyond. So it's not bashing, but it certainly is recognizing that there are imposed limitations on where he will go, even though he covers a lot of stuff in general beyond. And we know he knows more than what he talks about. For sure he does. You don't tattoo your body in all of these different symbols lightly, you know. So that is a deep thinker, and yeah. Ultimately, he recognizes it and he stresses it over and again. This is your individual journey. You make your way through it. You know, have faith and confidence in yourself and your ability to discern. And yeah, you don't need anyone telling you anything, really. So all instructions for us. And just like Nathan, they're very good at what they do, but we realize their limitations. Nathan has no point of view to offer beyond his points of view on the basic things that he'll offer up. He's strong convictions over and over again, and that's fine. That's fine, but we can realize the limitations there. So don't be thinking about bashing anybody. I'm not, but I am saying it as I see it. So you can take that as you will. Okay, let me move on to Pinocchio and okay, about a second or two behind. So that should come up as I put up the screen. We leave Radiohead behind for the moment. We'll see where this takes us. We'll go to the end, 6 chapters, and maybe get a chance to go through one of the videos. I'll see which one we'll go through. Okay, chapter 31. Pinocchio's pine-eyed pineal gland, but also the pine tree, the evergreen tree. This is referenced as well in Pinocchio. Of course, his desire is to transform from being made of wood to being a proper real boy, whatever that means. So anyway, after 5 months of play, Pinocchio wakes up one fine morning and finds a great surprise awaiting him. So finally, the wagon arrived. It made no noise, for its wheels were bound with straw and rags. It was drawn by 12 pairs of donkeys, all of the same size, but all of different color. Some were grey, others white, and still others a mixture of brown and black. Here and there were a few with large yellow and blue stripes. Strangest thing of all was that those 24 donkeys, as we have 24 as well, 888, right? Instead of being iron shod like any other beast of burden, had under feet laced shoes made of leather, just like the ones boys wear. And the driver of the wagon, imagine to yourself a little fat man, much wider than he was long, round and shiny as a ball of butter, with a face beaming like an apple, a little mouth that always smiled, and a voice small and wheedling, like that of a cat begging for food. No sooner did any boy see him than he fell in love with him, and nothing satisfied him but to be allowed to ride in his wagon to that lovely place called the Land of Toys. In fact, the wagon was so closely packed with boys of all ages that it looked like a box of sardines. They were uncomfortable. They were piled one on top of the other. They could hardly breathe, yet not one word of complaint was heard. Thought that in a few hours they would reach a country where there was no schools, no books, no teachers, made these boys so happy that they felt neither hunger nor thirst nor sleep nor discomfort. No sooner had the wagon stopped than the little fat man turned to Lampwick. With bows and smiles, he asked in a wheedling tone, "Tell me, my fine boy, do you also want to come to my wonderful country?" "Indeed I do. But I warned you, my dear, there's no more room in the wagon. It is full." "Never mind," answered Lampwick. "If there's no room inside, I can sit on top of the coach." And with one leap he perched himself there. "What about you, my love?" asked the little man, turning politely to Pinocchio. "What are you going to do? Will you come with us, or do you stay here?" "I stay here," answered Pinocchio. "I want to return home, as I prefer to study and to succeed in life." "May that bring you luck." "Pinocchio," Lampwick called out, "listen to me. Come with us, and we'll always be happy." "No, no, no. Come with us. We'll always be happy," cried 4 other voices from the wagon. "Come with us. We'll always be happy," shouted the 100 and more boys in the wagon all together. "And if I go with you, what will my good fairy say?" asked the marionette, who was beginning to waver and weaken in his good resolutions. "Don't worry so much. Only think, we are going to a land where we shall be allowed to make all the racket we like from morning till night." Pinocchio did not answer, but sighed deeply once, twice, a third time. Finally he said, "Make room for me. I want to go too." "The seats are all filled," answered the little man. "To show you how much I think of you, take my place as coachman." "And you?" "I'll walk." "No, indeed, I could not permit such a thing. I much prefer riding one of these donkeys," cried Pinocchio. No sooner said than done. He approached the first donkey and tried to mount it, but the little animal turned suddenly and gave him such a terrible kick in the stomach that Pinocchio was thrown to the ground and fell with his legs in the air. At this unlooked for entertainment, the whole company of runaways laughed uproariously. The fat little man did not laugh. He went up to the rebellious animal and, still smiling, bent over him lovingly and bit off half of his right ear. In the meantime, Pinocchio lifted himself up off the ground and with one leap landed on the donkey's back. The leap was so well taken that all the boys shouted, "Hooray for Pinocchio!" and clapped their hands in hearty applause. Suddenly, the little donkey gave a kick with his two hind feet, and at this unexpected move, the poor marionette found himself once again sprawling right in the middle of the road. Again the boys shouted with laughter, but the little man, instead of laughing, became so loving towards the little animal that, with another kiss, he bit off half his left ear. "You can mount now, boy," he said then to Pinocchio. "Have no fear. The donkey was worried about something, but I have spoken to him, and now he seems quiet and reasonable." Pinocchio mounted, and the wagon started on its way. While the donkeys galloped along the stony road, the marionette fancied he heard a very quiet voice whispering to him, "Poor silly, you have done as you wished, but you are going to be a sorry boy before very long." Pinocchio, greatly frightened, that's the devil on one shoulder, right, as opposed to the angel on the other. Pinocchio, greatly frightened, looked about him to see whence the words had come, but he saw no one. The donkeys galloped, the wagon rolled on smoothly, the boys slept, Lampwick snored like a dormouse, and the little fat driver sang sleepily between his teeth. After a mile or so, Pinocchio again heard the same voice whispering, "Remember, little simpleton, boys who stop studying and turn their backs upon books and schools and teachers in order to give all their time to nonsense and pleasure, sooner or later come to grief. Oh, how well I know this! How well I can prove it to you! A day will come when you will weep bitterly, as I am weeping now, but it will be too late." At these whispered words, the marionette grew more and more afraid. He jumped to the ground, ran up to the donkey on whose back he had been riding, and taking his nose in his hands, looked at him. Think how great was his surprise when he saw that the donkey was weeping, weeping like a boy. "Hey, Mr. Driver," cried the marionette, do you know what strange thing is happening here? The donkey weeps. Let him weep. When he gets married, he will have time to laugh." "Have you perhaps taught him to speak?" "No. He learned to mumble a few words when he lived for 3 years with a band of trained dogs. Poor beast." "Come, come," said the little man, "do not lose time over a donkey that can weep. Mount quickly and let us go. The night is cool and the road is long." Pinocchio obeyed without another word. The wagon started again. Toward dawn the next morning they finally reached the much longed for country, the land of toys. This great land was entirely different from any other place in the world. Its population, large though it was composed wholly of boys. The oldest was about 14 years of age, the youngest 8. In the street there was such a racket, such shouting, such blowing of trumpets that it was deafening. Everywhere groups of boys were gathered together. Some played at marbles, at hopscotch, at ball. Others rode on bicycles or on wooden horses. Some played at blind man's buff, others at tag. Here a group played circus, then another sang and recited. A few turned somersaults, others walked on their hands with their feet in the air. Generals in full uniform leading regiments of cardboard soldiers passed by. Laughter, shrieks, howls, catcalls, hand-clapping followed this parade. One boy made a noise like a hen, another like a rooster, and a third imitated a lion in his den. Altogether, they created such a pandemonium that it would have been necessary for you to put cotton in your ears. The squares were filled with small wooden theatres overflowing with boys from morning till night. On the walls of the house, written with charcoal, were words like this: "Hooray for the land of toys, down where arithmetic. No more school." As soon as they had set foot in the land, Pinocchio, Lampwick, and all the other boys who had travelled with them started out on a tour of investigation. They wandered everywhere. They looked into every nook and cranny, house and theatre. They became everybody's friend. Who could be happier than that? What with entertainments and parties, the hours, the days, the weeks passed like lightning. "Oh, what a beautiful life this is," said Pinocchio each time that by chance he met his friend Lampwick. "Was I right or wrong?" answered Lampwick. "And to think you didn't want to come. To think that even yesterday the idea came into your head to return home to see your fairy and to start studying again. If today you are free from pencils and books and school, you owe it to me, to my advice, to my care. Do you admit it? Only true friends count, after all." "It's true, Lampwick, it's true. If today," he burned the lampwick at both ends, "if today I'm a really happy boy, it's all because of you. And to think that the teacher, when speaking of it, used to say, 'Do not go with Lampwick. He is a bad company, and some day he will lead you astray.' Poor teacher, answered the other, nodding his head. Indeed, I know how much he disliked me, and how he enjoyed speaking ill of me. But I am of a generous nature, and I gladly forgive him. Great soul, said Pinocchio, fondly embracing his friend. 5 months passed, and the boys continued playing and enjoying themselves from morn till night, without ever seeking a book or a desk or a school. But, my children, there came a morning when Pinocchio awoke and found a great surprise awaiting him, a surprise which made him feel very unhappy, as you shall see. Chapter 32. Pinocchio's ears become like those of a donkey. In a little while he changes into a real donkey and begins to bray. Everyone, at one time or another, has found some surprise awaiting him, of the kind which Pinocchio had on that eventful morning of his life. There were but few. What was it? I will tell you, my dear little readers. On awakening, Pinocchio put his hand up to his head, and there he found, guess. He found that during the night his ears had grown at least 10 full inches. You must know that the marionette, even from his birth, had very small ears, so small indeed that to the naked eye they could hardly be seen. Fancy how he felt when he noticed that overnight those two dainty organs had become as long as shoe brushes. He went in search of a mirror, but not finding any, he just filled a basin with water and looked at himself. There he saw what he never could have wished to see. His manly figure was adorned and enriched by a beautiful pair of donkey ears. I leave you to think of the terrible grief, the shame, the despair of the poor marionette. He began to cry, to scream, to knock his head against the wall, but the more he shrieked, the longer and more hairy grew his ears. At those piercing shrieks, a dormouse came into the room, a fat little dormouse who lived upstairs. Seeing Pinocchio so grief-stricken, she asked him anxiously, "What is the matter, dear little neighbor?" "I am sick, my little dormouse, very, very sick, and from an illness which frightens me. Do you understand how to feel the pulse?" "A little." "Feel mine then, and tell me if I have a fever." The dormouse took Pinocchio's wrist between her paws, and after a few minutes, looked up at him sorrowfully and said, "My friend, I am sorry, but I must give you some very sad news." "What is it?" "You have a very bad fever." "But what fever is it?" "The donkey fever." The donkey fever. You like the donkey smell? I don't know anything about the fever, answered the marionette, beginning to understand even too well what was happening to him. "Then I will tell you about all of that." "About it," said the dormouse. "Know then that within 2 or 3 hours you will no longer be a marionette nor a boy. What shall I be? Within 2 or 3 hours you'll become a real donkey, just like the ones that pull the fruit carts to market." "Oh, what have I done? What have I done?" cried Pinocchio, grasping his 2 ears in his hands and pulling and tugging at them angrily, just as if they belonged to another. "My dear boy," answered the dormouse to cheer him up a bit, "why worry now? What is done cannot be undone. You know, fate has decreed that all lazy boys who come to hate books and school and teachers and spend all their days with toys and games must sooner or later turn into donkeys." "But is it really so?" asked the marionette, sobbing bitterly. "I am sorry to say it is, and tears now are useless. You should have thought of all of this before. But the fault is not mine, believe me, little dormouse. The fault is old Lampwick's." "And who is this Lampwick?" "Classmate of mine. I wanted to return home. I wanted to be obedient. I wanted to study and to succeed in school. But Lampwick said to me, 'Why do you want to waste your time studying? Why do you want to go to school? Come with me to the land of toys. There we'll never study again. There we can enjoy ourselves and be happy from morn till night.' And why did you follow the advice of that false friend? Why? Because, my dear dormouse, I am a heedless marionette, heedless and heartless. Oh, if I had only had a bit of a heart, I should never have abandoned that good fairy who loved me so well and has been so kind to me. And by this time I should no longer be a marionette. I should have become a real boy, like all these friends of mine. Oh, if I meet Lampic, I'm going to tell him what I think of him, and more too." After this long speech, Pinocchio walked to the door of the room, but when he reached it, remembering his donkey ears, he felt ashamed to show them to the public and turned back. He took a large cotton bag from a shelf, put it on his head, and pulled it far down to his nose. Thus adorned, he went out. He looked for Lampic everywhere, along the streets, in the squares, inside the theatres, everywhere, but he was not to be found. He asked everyone whom he met about him, but no one had seen him. In desperation, he returned home and knocked at the door. "Who is it?" asked Lampic from within. "It is I," answered the marionette. "Wait a minute." After a full half hour, the door opened. Another surprise awaited Pinocchio. There in the room stood his friend, with a large cotton bag on his head, pulled far down to his very nose. At the sight of the bag, Pinocchio felt slightly happier and thought to himself, "My friend must be suffering from the same sickness that I am. I wonder if he too has donkey fever." But pretending he had seen nothing, he asked with a smile, How are you, my dear Lampwick? Very well, like a mouse in the Parmesan cheese. Is that really true? Why should I lie to you? I beg your pardon, my friend, but why then are you wearing the cotton bag over your ears? The doctor has ordered it because one of my knees hurt. And you, dear Marionette, why are you wearing that cotton bag down to your nose? Doctor has ordered it because I have bruised my foot. Oh, my Pinocchio. Oh, my poor Pinocchio. Oh, my poor Lampwick. An embarrassingly long silence followed these words, during which time the two friends looked at each other in a mocking way. Finally, the Marionette, in a voice sweet as honey and soft as a flute, said to his companion, "Tell me, Lampwick, dear friend, have you ever suffered from an earache? Never. And you? Never. Still, since the morning my ear has been torturing me. So has mine. Yours too. And what ear is it? Both of them. And yours. Both of them too. I wonder if it could be the same sickness. I'm afraid it is. Will you do me a favor, Lampwick? Gladly, with my whole heart. Will you let me see your ears? Why not? But before I show you mine, I want to see yours, dear Pinocchio. No, you must show yours first. No, my dear, yours first, then mine. Well then, said the Marionette, let us make a contract. Let's hear the contract. Let's take off our caps together, all right? All right, ready then. Pinocchio began to count 1, 2, 3. At the word 3, the two boys pulled off their caps and threw them high in the air. And then a scene took place which was hard to believe, but is all too true. Marionette and his friend Lampwick, when they saw each other, both stricken by the same misfortune, instead of feeling sorrowful or ashamed, began to poke fun at one another, and after much nonsense, they ended up bursting out into hearty laughter. They laughed and laughed and laughed again, laughed till they ached, laughed till they cried. All of a sudden, Lampwick stopped laughing. He tottered and almost fell, pale as a ghost. He turned to Pinocchio and said, "Help, help, Pinocchio! What is the matter? Oh, help me! I can no longer stand. I can no longer stand up." "I can't either," cried Pinocchio, and his laughter turned to tears as he stumbled about helplessly. They had hardly finished speaking when both of them fell on all fours and began running and jumping around the room. As they ran, their arms turned into legs, their faces lengthened into snouts, and their backs became covered with long grey hairs. This was humiliation enough, but the most horrible moment was the one in which the two poor creatures felt their tails appear. Overcome with shame and grief, they tried to cry and bemoan their fate. But what is done cannot be undone. Instead of moans and cries, they burst forth into loud donkey brays, which sounded very much like haw, haw, haw. At that moment, a loud knocking was heard at the door, and a voice called to them. "Open! I am the little man, the driver of the wagon which brought you here. Open, I say, or beware." Chapter 33. Pinocchio, having become a donkey, is bought by the owner of a circus who wants to teach him to do tricks. The donkey becomes lame and is sold to a man who wants to use his skin for a drum. Very sad and downcast were the poor little fellows as they stood and looked at one another. Outside the room, the little man grew more and more impatient and finally gave the door such a violent kick that it flew open. With his usual sweet smile on his lips, he looked at Pinocchio and Lampwick and said to them, "Fine work, boys. You have brayed well, so well that I recognize your voices immediately, and here I am." On hearing this, the two donkeys bowed their heads in shame, dropped their ears, and put their tails between their legs. At first, the little man petted and caressed them and smoothed down their hairy coats. Then he took out a curry comb and worked over them till they shone like glass. Satisfied with the looks of the two little animals, he bridled them and took them to a marketplace far away from the land of toys in the hope of selling them at a good price. In fact, he did not have to wait very long for an offer. Lampwick was bought by a farmer whose donkey had died the day before. Pinocchio went to the owner of a circus who wanted to teach him to do tricks for his audiences. And now do you understand what the little man's profession was? This horrid little being, whose face shone with kindness, was about the world looking for boys, lazy boys, boys who hated books, boys who wanted to run away from home, boys who were tired of school. All these were his joy and his fortune. He took them with him to the land of toys and let them enjoy themselves to their heart's content. When, after months of all play and no work, they became little donkeys, he sold them on the marketplace. In a few years, he had become a millionaire. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. Do you remember that? Remember that line from Stanley Kubrick's, Stephen King's The Shining? Also the child catcher, reminiscent of in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. What happened to Lampwick, my dear children? I do not know. Pinocchio, I can tell you, met with great hardships even from the first day. After putting him in the stable, his new master filled his manger with straw, but Pinocchio, after tasting a mouthful, spat it out. Then the man filled the manger with hay, but Pinocchio did not like that any better. Ah, you don't like hay either, he cried angrily. Wait, my pretty donkey, I'll teach you not to be so particular. Without much ado, he took a whip and gave the donkey a hearty blow across the legs. Pinocchio screamed with pain, and as he screamed, he brayed. "Haw, haw, haw, I can't digest straw." "Then eat the hay," answered his master, who understood the donkey perfectly. "Haw, haw, haw, hay gives me a headache." "Do you pretend, by any chance, that I should feed you duck or chicken?" asked the man again, and angrier than ever, he gave poor Pinocchio another lashing. At that second beating, Pinocchio became very quiet and said no more. After that, the door of the stable was closed and he was left alone. It was many hours since he had eaten everything, and he started to yawn from hunger. As he yawned, he opened a mouth as big as an oven. Finally, not finding anything else in the manger, he tasted the hay. After tasting it, he chewed it well, closed his eyes, and swallowed it. "The hay is not bad," he said to himself, "but how much happier I should be if I had studied. Just now, instead of hay, I should be eating some good bread and butter." Patience. Next morning, when he awoke, Pinocchio looked in the manger for more hay, but it was all gone. He had eaten it all during the night. He tried the straw, but as he chewed away at it, he noticed, to his great disappointment, that it tasted neither like rice nor like macaroni. "Patience," he repeated as he chewed. "If only my misfortune might serve as a lesson to disobedient boys who refuse to study. Patience, have patience." "Patience indeed," shouted the master just then as he came into the stable. "Do you think perhaps, my little donkey, that I have brought you here only to give you food and drink? Oh no, you are here to help me earn some fine gold pieces. Do you hear? Come along now. I'm going to teach you to jump and bow, to dance a waltz and a polka, and even to stand on your head." Poor Pinocchio, whether he liked it or not, had to learn all of these wonderful things, but it took him 3 long months and cost him many, many lashings before he was pronounced perfect. The day came at last when Pinocchio's master was able to announce an extraordinary performance. The announcements, posted all around the town and written in large letters, read thus: "Great spectacle tonight, leaps and exercises by the great artists and the famous horses of the company. First public appearance of the famous donkey called Pinocchio, the star of the dance. The theatre will be as light as day." That night, as you can well imagine, the theatre was filled to overflowing 1 hour before the show was scheduled to start. Not an orchestra chair could be had, not a balcony seat, not a gallery seat, not even for their weight in gold. The place swarmed with boys and girls of all ages and sizes, wriggling and dancing about in a fever of impatience to see the famous donkey dance. When the first part of the performance was over, the owner and manager of the circus, in a black coat, white knee breeches, and patent leather boots, presented himself to the public and in a loud, pompous voice made the following announcement: "Most honored friends, gentlemen, and ladies, your humble servant, the manager of this theatre, presents himself before you tonight in order to introduce you to the greatest and most famous donkey in the world, a donkey that has had the great honor in his short life of performing before the kings and queens and emperors of all the great courts of Europe. Thank you for your attention." This speech was greeted by much laughter and applause, and the applause grew to a roar when Pinocchio, the famous donkey, appeared in the circus ring. He was handsomely arrayed. A new bridle of shiny leather with buckles of polished brass was on his back. 2 white camellias were tied to his ears. Ribbons and tassels of red silk adorned his mane, which were divided into many curls. A great sash of gold and silver was fastened around his waist, and his tail was decorated with ribbons of many brilliant colors. He was a handsome donkey indeed. The manager, when introducing him to the public, added these words: "Most honored audience, I should not take your time tonight to tell you of the great difficulties which I have encountered while trying to tame this animal, since I found him in the wilds of Africa. Observe, I beg of you, the savage look in his eye. All the means used by centuries of civilization in subduing wild beasts failed in this case. I had finally to resort to the gentle language of the whip in order to bring him to my will. With all my kindness, however, I never succeeded in gaining my donkey's love. He is still today as savage as the day I found him. He still fears and hates me, but I have found in him one great redeeming feature. Do you see this little bump on his forehead? It is this bump which gives him his great talent of dancing and using his feet as nimbly as a human being. Admire him, or signora, and enjoy yourselves. I let you now be the judges of my success as a teacher of animals. Before I leave you, I wish to state that there will be another performance tomorrow night. If the weather threatens rain, the great spectacle will take place at 11 o'clock in the morning. The manager bowed and then turned to Pinocchio instead and said, "Ready, Pinocchio. Before starting your performance, salute the audience." Pinocchio obediently bent his two knees to the ground and remained kneeling until the manager, with a crack of the whip, cried sharply, "Walk." The donkey lifted himself on his 4 feet and walked around the ring. A few minutes passed, and again the voice of the manager called, "Quick step," and Pinocchio obediently changed his step. "Gallop," and Pinocchio galloped. Full speed, and Pinocchio ran as fast as he could. As he ran, the master raised his arm, and a pistol shot rang in the air. At the shot, the little donkey fell to the ground as if he were really dead. A shower of applause greeted the donkey as he arose to his feet. Cries and shouts and hand clapping were heard on all sides. At all that noise, Pinocchio lifted his head and raised his eyes. There, in front of him, in a box, sat a beautiful woman. Around her neck she wore a long gold chain from which hung a large medallion. On the medallion was painted a picture of a marionette. "That is a picture of me. Beautiful lady is my fairy," said Pinocchio to himself, recognizing her. He felt so happy that he tried his best to cry out, "Oh, my fairy, my own fairy." But instead of words, a loud braying was heard in the theatre, so loud and so long that all the spectators, men, women, and children, but especially the children, burst out laughing. Then, in order to teach the donkey that it was not good manners to bray before the public, the manager hit him on the nose with the handle of the whip. The poor little donkey stuck out a long tongue and licked his nose for a long time in an effort to take away the pain. And what was his grief when, on looking up towards the boxes, he saw the fairy had disappeared. He felt himself fainting, his eyes filled with tears, and he wept bitterly. No one knew it, however, least of all, the manager, who, cracking his whip, cried out, "Brave Pinocchio, now shows how gracefully you can jump through these rings." Pinocchio tried 2 or 3 times, but each time he came near the ring, he found it more to his taste to go under it. The fourth time, at a look from his master, he leapt through it, but as he did so, his hind legs caught in the ring, and he fell to the floor on a heap. When he got up, he was lame and could hardly limp as far as the stable. "Pinocchio, we want Pinocchio, we want the little donkey," cried the boys from the orchestra, saddened by the accident. No one saw Pinocchio again that evening. The next morning, the veterinarian, that is the animal doctor, declared he would be lame for the rest of his life. "So I want with a lame donkey," said the manager to the stable boy. "Take him to the market and sell him." When they had reached the square, a buyer was soon found. "How much do you ask for that little donkey?" he asked. $4. "I'll give you 4 cents. Don't think I'm buying him for work. I only want his skin. It looks very tough, and I can use it to make myself a drumhead. I belong to a musical band in my village, and I need a drum. I leave it to you, my dear children, to picture to yourself the great pleasure with which Pinocchio heard that he was to become a drumhead." As soon as the buyer had paid the 4 cents, the donkey changed hands. His new owner took him to a high cliff overlooking the sea, put a stone around his neck, tied a rope to one end of his hind feet, gave him a push, threw him into the water. Pinocchio sank immediately, and his new master sat on the cliff waiting for him to drown, so as to skin him and make himself a drumhead. Chapter 34. Pinocchio is thrown into the sea, eaten by fishes, and becomes a marionette once more. As he swims to land, he is swallowed by the terrible shark. Down into the sea, deeper and deeper, sank Pinocchio, and finally, after 30 minutes of waiting, the man on the cliff said to himself, "By this time, my poor little donkey must be drowned. Up with him, and then I can get to work on my beautiful drum." He pulled the rope which he had tied to Pinocchio's leg, pulled and pulled and pulled, and at last he saw appear on the surface of the water, can you guess what? Instead of a dead donkey, he saw a very much alive marionette, wriggling and squirming like an eel. Seeing that wooden marionette, the poor man thought he was dreaming, and sat there with his mouth wide open and his eyes popping out of his head. Gathering his wits together, he said, "And the donkey I threw into the sea? I am that donkey," answered the marionette, laughing. "You? I. Ah, you little cheat. You're poking fun at me. Poking fun at you? Not at all, dear master. I am talking seriously. Then how is it that you, who a few minutes ago were a donkey, are now standing before me, a wooden marionette? I may be defective with salt water. The sea is fond of playing these tricks. Be careful, marionette, be careful. Don't laugh at me. Woe be to you if I lose my patience. Well then, my master, do you want to know my whole story? Untie my leg, and I can give it to you better. The old fellow, curious to know the true story of the marionette's life, immediately untied the rope which held his foot. Pinocchio, feeling free as a bird of the air, began his tale. Know then that once upon a time I was a winged marionette, just as I am today. One day I was about to become a boy, a real boy, but on account of my laziness and my hatred for books, and because I listened to bad companions, I ran away from home. One beautiful morning, I woke to find myself changed into a donkey, long ears, grey coat, even a tail. What a shameful day for me. I hope you will never experience one like it, dear master. I was taken to a fair and sold to a circus owner who tried to make me dance and jump through rings. One night, during a performance, I had a bad fall and became lame. Not knowing what to do with a lame donkey, the circus owner sent me to the marketplace and you bought me. Indeed I did, and I paid 4 cents for you. Now, who will return my money to me? Why did you buy me? You bought me here you bought me to do me harm, to kill me, to make a drumhead out. Indeed I did. And now where shall I find another skin? Never mind, dear master. There are so many donkeys in this world. Tell me, impudent little rogue, does your story end here? One more word, answered the marionette, and I am through. After buying me, you brought me here to kill me. But feeling sorry for me, you tied a stone to my neck and threw me to the bottom of the sea. That was very good and kind of you to want me to suffer as little as possible, and I shall remember you always. And now my fairy will take care of me, even if your fairy, who is she? She is my mother, and, like all other mothers who love their children, she never loses sight of me, even though I do not deserve it. And today, this good fairy of mine, as soon as she saw me in danger of drowning, sent 1,000 fishes to the spot where I lay. They thought I was really a dead donkey and began to eat me. What great bites they took! One ate my ears, another my nose, a third my neck and my mane, some at my legs and some at my back. And among the others, there was only one fish, so gentle and polite that he did me the great favor of eating even my tail. From now on, said the man, horrified, I swear I shall never again taste fish. How I should enjoy opening a mullet or a white fish just to find that there the tail of a dead donkey. I think as you do, answered the marionette, laughing. Still, you must know that when the fish finished eating my donkey coat, which covered me from head to foot, they naturally came to the bones, or rather, in my case, to the wood, for as you know, I am made of very hard wood. After the first few bites, those greedy fish found that the wood was not good for their teeth, and afraid of indigestion, they turned and ran away, and there, without saying goodbye, or even as much as a thank you from me. Here, dear master, you have my story. You know now why you found a marionette and not a dead donkey when you pulled me out of the water. I laugh at your story, cried the man angrily. I know that I have spent 4 cents to get you, and I want my money back. You know what I can do. I'm going to take you to the market once more and sell you as dry firewood. Very well, sell me. I am satisfied, said Pinocchio. But as he spoke, he gave a quick leap and dived into the sea, swimming as fast as he could. He cried out, laughing, Goodbye, master. If you ever need a skin for your drum, remember me. He swam on and on. After a while, he turned around again and called louder than before, Goodbye, master. If you ever need a piece of good dry firewood, remember me. In a few seconds he had gone so far he could hardly be seen. All that could be seen of him was a very small black dot moving swiftly on the blue surface of the water. He'd probably gone behind the curve, or at least the bottom half of him disappeared. So he could only be seen from the nose up. His mouth and his chin had disappeared beyond the curve of the earth. The little black dot, which now and then lifted a leg or an arm in the air, one would have thought Pinocchio had turned into a porpoise, playing in the sun. After swimming for a long while, Pinocchio saw a large rock in the middle of the sea, a rock as white as marble. High on the rock stood a little goat, bleating and calling and beckoning to the marionette to come to her. There was something very strange about that little goat, Go-A-T. Her coat was not white or black or brown, as that of any other goat, but azure, a deep, brilliant color that reminded one of the hair of the lovely maiden. Pinocchio's heart beat fast, and then faster and faster. He redoubled his efforts and swam as hard as he could towards the white rock. He was almost halfway over when suddenly a horrible sea monster stuck its head out of the water, an enormous head with a huge mouth wide open, showing 3 rows of gleaming teeth, the mere sight of which would have filled you with fear. You know what it is. The sea monster was no other than the enormous shark, which had often been mentioned in this, which has often been mentioned in the story, and which, on account of its cruelty, had been nicknamed the Attila of the sea by both fishermen and fish. Poor Pinocchio. The sight of that monster frightened him almost to death. He tried to swim away from him, to change his path to escape, but that immense mouth kept coming nearer and nearer. Hasten, Pinocchio, I beg you, bleated little goat on the high rock. And Pinocchio swam desperately with his arms, his body, his legs, his feet. Quick, Pinocchio, the monster is coming nearer. Pinocchio swam faster and faster and harder. Faster, Pinocchio, the monster will get you. There he is. Quick, quick, or you are lost. Pinocchio went through the water like a shot, swifter and swifter. He came close to the rock. Goat leaned over and gave him one of her hoofs to help him out of the water. Alas, it was too late. The monster overtook him, and the marionette found himself in between the rows of gleaming white teeth. Only for a moment, however, for the shark took a deep breath, and as he breathed, he drank in the marionette as easily as he would have sucked an egg. Then he swallowed him so fast that Pinocchio, falling down into the body of the fish, lay stunned for a half hour. When he recovered his senses, the marionette could not remember where he was. Around him all was darkness, a darkness so deep and so black that for a moment he thought that he had put his head into an inkwell. He listened for a few moments and heard nothing. Once in a while a cold wind blew in his face. At first he could not understand where the wind was coming from, but after a while he understood that it came from the lungs of the monster. I forgot to tell you that the shark was suffering from asthma, so that whenever he breathed, a storm seemed to blow. Pinocchio at first tried to be brave, but as soon as he became convinced that he was really and truly in the shark's stomach, he burst into sobs and tears. Help, help, he cried. Oh, poor me. Sorry, chapter 32. Yeah, it's the same chapter. Won't someone come and save me? Who is there to help you? Unhappy boy, said a rough voice, like a guitar out of tune. Who is talking? Asked Pinocchio, frozen with terror. It is I, a poor tunny swallowed by the shark at the same time as you. What kind of fish are you? I have nothing to do with fishes. I'm a marionette. If you were not a fish, why did you let this monster swallow you? I didn't. He chased me and swallowed me without even a by your leave. And now, what are we to do here in the dark? Wait until the shark has digested us both, I suppose. But I don't want to be digested, said Pinocchio, starting to sob. Neither do I, said the tunny, but I am wise enough to think that if one is born a fish, it is more dignified to die under the water than in the frying pan. What nonsense, cried Pinocchio. Mine is an opinion, replied the tunny. An opinion should be respected. Or but to say opinions are like arseholes, which is something that Pinocchio and Tunny are the Tunny are going to be facing up close and personal in the near future. But I want to get out of this place. I want to escape. Go if you can. If the shark that has swallowed us is the shark that has swallowed us very long, asked the marionette, whose body, not counting the tail, is almost a mile long. While talking in the darkness, Pinocchio thought he saw a faint light in the distance. What can that be? He said to the tunny. Some other poor fish waiting as patiently as we to be digested by the shark. I want to see him. He may be an old fish and may know some way of escape. I wish you all good luck, dear marionette. Goodbye, tunny. Goodbye, marionette, and good luck. When shall I see you again? Who knows? It is better not to think about it. Okay, last two chapters, chapter 35. In the shark's body, Pinocchio finds whom, I read this chapter, my children, you will know. Pinocchio, as soon as he had said goodbye to his good friend, the tunny, tottered away into darkness and began to walk as well as he could towards the faint light which glowed in the distance. As he walked, his feet splashed in a pool of greasy and slippery water, which had such a heavy smell of fish fried in oil that Pinocchio thought it was Lent. The further he went on, the brighter and clearer grew the tiny light. On and on he walked till finally he found, I give you 1,000 guesses, my dear children, he found a little table set for dinner, and lighted by a candle stuck in a glass bottle. Near the table sat an old man, white as snow, eating live fish. They wriggled so that now and again one of them slipped out of the old man's mouth and escaped into the darkness under the table. At this sight the poor marionette was filled with such great and sudden happiness that he almost dropped in a faint. He wanted to laugh, he wanted to cry, he wanted to say 1,001 things, but all he could do was to stand still, stuttering and stammering brokenly. At last, with a great effort, he was able to get out a scream of joy, and opening wide his arms, he threw them around the old man's neck. Oh, father, dear father, have I found you at last? Now I shall never, never leave you again. Are my eyes really telling me the truth? Answered the old man, rubbing his eyes. Are you really my dear, own Pinocchio. Yes, 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 it is I. Look at me. And you have forgiven me, haven't you? Oh, my dear father, how good you are to think that but if you only knew how many misfortunes had fallen on my head and how many troubles I have had. Just think that on the day you sold your own coat to buy me the ABC book so that I could go to school, I ran away to the Marionette Theatre and the proprietor caught me and wanted to burn me to cook his roast lamb. He was the one who gave me the 5 gold pieces for you, but I met the fox and the cat who took me to the inn of the Red Lobster. There they ate like wolves, and I left the inn alone, and I met the assassins in the woods. I ran, they ran after me, always after me, till they hanged me to the branch of a giant oak tree. Then the fairy of the azure hair sent the coach to rescue me, and the doctors, after looking at me, said if he is not dead, then he is surely alive. And then I told a lie, and my nose began to grow. Grew and it grew till I couldn't get it through the door of the room. And then I went with the fox and the cat to the field of wonders to bury the gold pieces. The parrot laughed at me, and instead of 2,000 gold pieces, I found none. When the judge heard I'd been robbed, he sent me to jail to make the thieves happy. And when I came away, I saw a fine bunch of grapes hanging on a vine. The trap caught me, and the farmer put a collar on me and made me a watchdog. He found out I was innocent when I caught the weasels and he let me go. The serpent with the tail that smoked started to laugh, and a vein in his chest broke, so that I went back to the fairy's house. She was dead, and the pigeon, seeing me crying, said to me, I have seen your father building a boat to look for you in America. And I said to him, oh, if I only had wings. And he said to me, do you want to go to your father? And I said, perhaps, but how? And he said, get on my back, and I'll take you there. We flew all night long, and the next morning the fishermen were looking towards the sea, crying, there's a poor little man drowning. And I knew it was you, because my heart told me, and I waved to you from the shore. I knew you also, put in Geppetto, and I wanted to go back to you. But how could I? The sea was rough, and the whitecaps overturned the boat. Then a terrible shark came up out of the sea, and as soon as he saw me in the water, swam quickly towards me, put out his tongue, and swallowed me as easily as if I had been a chocolate peppermint. And how long have you been shut away in here? From that day to this, 2 long, weary years, 2 years, my Pinocchio, which have been like 2 centuries. And how have you lived? Where did you find the candle and the matches which lighted? Where did you get them? You must know that in the storm which swamped my boat, a large ship also suffered the same fate. The sailors were all saved, but the ship went right to the bottom of the sea, and the terrible shark that swallowed me swallowed most of it. What? Swallowed a ship? Asked Pinocchio in astonishment. At one gulp, the only thing he spat out was the mainmast, for it stuck in his teeth. To my own good luck, that ship was loaded with meat, preserved food, crackers, bread, bottles of wine, raisins, cheese, coffee, sugar, wax candles, and boxes of matches, and a big block of hash. With all of these blessings, I've been able to live happily for the last 2 years, and now I'm at the very last crumbs. Today there is nothing left in the cupboard, and this candle you see here is the last one I have. And then, my dear, we find ourselves in darkness. Then, my dear father, said Pinocchio, there is no time to lose. We must try to escape. Escape? How? We can run out of the shark's mouth and dive into the sea. You speak well, but I cannot swim, my dear Pinocchio. Why should that matter? You can climb on my shoulders, and I, who are a fine swimmer, will carry you safely to shore. Dreams, my boy, answered Geppetto, shaking his head and smiling sadly. Do you think it's possible for a marionette 1 yard high to have the strength to carry me on his shoulders and swim? Try it and see. But in any case, if it is written that we must die, we shall at least die together. Not adding another word, Pinocchio took the candle in his hand, and going ahead to light the way, he said to his father, follow me and have no fear. They walked a long distance through the stomach and the whole body of the shark. When they reached the throat of the monster, they stopped for a while to wait for the right moment in which to make their escape. I want you to know that the shark, being very old and suffering from asthma and heart trouble, was obliged to sleep with his mouth open. Because of this, Pinocchio was able to catch a glimpse of the sky filled with stars as he looked up through the open jaws of his new home. The time has come for us to escape, he whispered, turning to his father. The shark is fast asleep. The sea is calm, and the night is as bright as day. Follow me closely, dear father, and we shall soon be saved. No sooner said than done. They climbed up the throat of the monster till they came to that immense open mouth. There they had to walk on tiptoes, for if they tickled the shark's long tongue, he might awake. And where would they be then? The tongue was so wide and so long that it looked like a country road. The two fugitives were just about to dive into the sea when the shark sneezed very suddenly, and as he sneezed, he gave Pinocchio and Geppetto such a jolt that they found themselves thrown on their backs and dashed once more and very unceremoniously into the stomach of the monster. To make matters worse, the candle went out and father and son were left in the dark. And now, asked Pinocchio with a serious face, now we are lost. Why lost? Give me your hand, my dear father, and be careful not to slip. Where will you take me? I'll take you to the arse, said Pinocchio. Straight to the arse we go. Where will you take me? We must try again. Come with me and don't be afraid. With these words, Pinocchio took his father by the hand, and, always walking on tiptoes, they climbed up the monster's throat for a second time. Then they crossed the whole tongue and jumped over 3 rows of teeth. But before they took the last leap, the marionette said to his father, "Climb on my back and hold on tightly to my neck. I'll take care of everything else." As soon as Geppetto was comfortably seated on his shoulders, Pinocchio, very sure of what he was doing, dived into the water and started to swim. The sea was like oil, the moon shone in all its splendor, and the shark continued to sleep so soundly that even a cannon shot would have awakened. Right, so we're down to the last chapter. Okay, well, I'll just save that comment to the end. Chapter 36, Pinocchio finally ceases to be a marionette and becomes a boy. My dear father, we are saved, cried the marionette. All we have to do now is to get to the shore, and that is easy. Without another word, he swam swiftly away in an effort to reach land as soon as possible. All at once, he noticed that Geppetto was shivering and shaking, as if with a high fever. Was he shivering from fear or cold? Who knows, perhaps a little of both. Was Pinocchio, thinking his father was frightened, tried to comfort him by saying, "Courage, father, in a few moments we shall be safe on land." "Where is that blessed shore?" asked the little old man, more and more worried as he tried to pierce the faraway shadows. "Here I am searching on all sides, and I see nothing but sea and sky." "I see the shore," said the marionette. "Remember, father, that I am like a cat. I see better at night than by day." Poor Pinocchio pretended to be peaceful and contented, but he was far from that. He was beginning to feel discouraged. His strength was leaving him, and his breathing was becoming more and more labored. He felt he could not go on much longer, and the shore was still far away. He swam a few more strokes, then he turned to Geppetto and cried out weakly, "Help me, father! Father, help! For I am dying!" Father and son were really about to drown when they heard a voice like a guitar out of tune calling from the sea. "What is the trouble? It is I, my poor father." "I know the voice. You are Pinocchio." "Exactly, and you?" "I am that tunny, your companion in the shark's stomach." "And how did you escape?" "I imitated your example. You were the one who showed me the way, and after you went, I followed." "Tunny, you arrived at the right moment. I implore you, for the love you bear your children, little tunnies, help us, or we are lost." "With great pleasure indeed. Hang on to my tail, both of you, and let me lead you. In a twinkling, you will be you will be safe on land." Geppetto and Pinocchio, as you can easily imagine, did not refuse the invitation. Indeed, instead of hanging onto the tail, they thought it better to climb on the tunny's back. "Are you too heavy? Are we too heavy?" asked Pinocchio. "Heavy? Not in the least. You are as light as seashells," answered the tunny, who was as large as a 2-year-old horse. As soon as I didn't know what a tunny was actually for a minute, so yeah, well, let's put me right. As soon as they reached the shore, Pinocchio was the first to jump to the ground to help his old father. Then he turned to the fish and said to him, "Dear friend, you have saved my father, and I have not enough words with which to thank you. Allow me to embrace you as a sign of my eternal gratitude." So because it's another 5 pages, let me just say I always thought it was a whale, and maybe that's could be a Mandela effect, but I always thought it was a whale, and that Pinocchio and Geppetto made their way up towards the what do we call that, the breathing hole, and were blown out. But anyone else out there think the same? Maybe the book, maybe that was featured probably in a movie, a Disney movie or something, where they switcherooed the shark for a whale. But definitely my memory would have been swallowed by a whale. And we're told this another, just to talk about possible Mandela effects or whatever. What was it? What did day 4 when God created all the sea creatures? It says something like he created the whale and all of the other sea creatures. I never remember the whale being specifically mentioned like that in Genesis 1. So I wonder, did that come as a surprise to you as well? But yeah, definitely thought it was a whale here that Pinocchio and Geppetto made their way out of. Anyway, the tunny stuck his nose out of the water, and Pinocchio knelt on the sand and kissed him most affectionately on the cheek. At this warm greeting, the poor tunny, who was not used to such tenderness, wept like a child. He felt so embarrassed and ashamed that he turned quickly, plunged into the sea, and disappeared. In the meantime, day had dawned. Pinocchio offered his arm to Geppetto, who was so weak he could hardly stand, and said to him, "Lean on my arm, dear father, and let us go. We will walk very, very slowly, and if we feel tired, we can rest by the wayside." "Where are you going?" asked Geppetto. "To look for a house or a hut where they will be kind enough to give us a bite of bread and a bit of straw to sleep on." They had not taken 100 steps when they saw two rough-looking individuals sitting on a stone begging for alms. It was the fox and the cat, but one could hardly recognize them. They looked so miserable. The cat, after pretending to be blind for so many years, had really lost the sight of both eyes, and the fox, old, thin, and almost hairless, had even lost its tail. That sly thief had fallen into deepest poverty, and one day he had been forced to sell his beautiful tail for a bite to eat. "Oh, Pinocchio," he cried in a tearful voice, "give us some alms, we beg of you. We are old, tired, and sick." "Sick," repeated the cat. "Addio, false friends," answered the marionette. "You cheated me once, but you'll never catch me again. Believe us, today we are truly poor and starving." "Starving," repeated the cat. "If you are poor, you deserve it. Remember the old proverb which says, 'Stolen money never bears fruit.' Addio, false friends. Have mercy on us. Addio, false friends. Remember the old proverb which says, 'Bad wheat always makes poor bread.' Do not abandon us, repeated the cat. Addio, false friends. Remember the old proverb. Whoever steals his neighbor's shirt usually dies without his own." Waving goodbye to them, Pinocchio and Geppetto calmly went on their way. After a few more steps, they saw, at the end of a long road near a clump of trees, a tiny cottage built of straw. "Someone must live in that little hut," said Pinocchio. "Let us see for ourselves." They went and knocked at the door. "Who is it?" said a little voice from within. "A poor father and a poor son, without food and with no roof to cover them," answered the marionette. "Turn the key and the door will open," said the little voice. Pinocchio turned the key and the door opened. As soon as they went in, they looked here and there and everywhere, but saw no one. "Oh, oh, ho! Where is the owner of the hut?" cried Pinocchio, very much surprised. "Here I am, up here." Father and son looked up at the ceiling, and there, on a beam, sat the talking cricket. "Oh, my dear cricket," said Pinocchio, bowing politely. "Oh, now you call me your dear cricket. Do you remember when you threw your hammer at me to kill me?" "You're right, dear cricket. Throw a hammer at me now. I deserve it. But spare my poor old father." "I'm going to spare both the father and the son. I've only wanted to remind you of the trick you played. I was okay. I only wanted to remind you of the trick you long ago played upon me, to teach you that in this world of ours we must be kind and courteous to others if we want to find kindness and courtesy in our days of trouble. You're right, little cricket. You're more than right, and I shall remember the lesson you have told me. But will you tell how you succeeded in buying this pretty little cottage? This cottage was given to me yesterday by a little goat with blue hair." "Where did the goat go?" asked Pinocchio. "I don't know." "And when will she come back?" "She will never come back. Yesterday she went away bleating sadly, and it seemed to me she said, 'Poor Pinocchio, I shall never see him again. The shark must have eaten him by this time.'" But it was her real words. "Then it was, my dear little fairy," cried out Pinocchio, sobbing bitterly. After he had cried a long time, he wiped his eyes. Then he made a bed of straw for old Geppetto. He laid him on it and said to the talking cricket, "Tell me, little cricket, where shall I find a glass of milk for my poor father? 3 fields away from here lives Farmer John. He has some cows. Go there, and they will give you what you want." Pinocchio ran all the way to Farmer John's house. The farmer said to him, "How much milk do you want?" "I want a full glass." "A full glass costs a penny." "First give me the penny." "I have no penny," answered Pinocchio, sad and ashamed. "Very bad, my marionette," answered the farmer. "Very bad. If you have no penny, I have no milk." "Too bad," said Pinocchio, and started to go. "Wait a moment," said Farmer John. Perhaps we can come to terms. You know how to draw water from a well. We can try." "Then go to that well you see yonder and draw 100 bucketfuls of water." "Very well. After you have finished, I shall give you a glass of milk. I shall give you a glass of warm, sweet milk. I am satisfied." Farmer John took the marionette to the well and showed him how to draw the water. Pinocchio set to work as well as he knew how, but long before he had pulled up the 100 buckets, he was tired out and dripping with perspiration. He had never worked so hard in his life. "Until today," said the farmer, "my donkey had drawn the water for me, but now the poor animal is dying." "Will you take me to see him?" said Pinocchio. "Gladly." As soon as Pinocchio went into the stable, he spied a little donkey lying on a bed of straw in the corner of the stable. He was worn out from hunger and too much work. After looking at him a long time, he said to himself, "I know that donkey. I have seen him before." Bending low over him, he asked, "Who are you?" At this question the donkey opened weary, dying eyes and answered in the same tongue, "I am Lampwick." Then he closed his eyes and died. "Oh, my poor Lampwick," said Pinocchio in a faint voice as he wiped his eyes with some straw he had picked up from the ground. "Do you feel so sorry for a little donkey that has cost you nothing?" said the farmer. "What should I do, I, who have paid my good money for him? But, you see, he was my friend, your friend, a classmate of mine." "What?" shouted Farmer John, bursting out laughing. "What? You had donkeys in your school? How you must have studied." The marionette, ashamed and hurt by those words, did not answer, but taking his glass of milk, he returned to his father. From that day on, for more than 5 months, Pinocchio got up every morning just as dawn was breaking, and went to the farm to draw water. And every day he was given a glass of warm milk for his poor old father, who grew stronger and better by the day. But he was not satisfied with this. He learned to make baskets of reeds and sold them. With the money he received, he and his father were able to keep from starving. Among other things, he built a rolling chair, strong and comfortable, to take his old father out for an airing on bright sunny days. In the evening, the marionette studied by lamplight. With some of the money he had earned, he bought himself a second-hand volume that had a few missing pages, and with that he learned to read in a very short time. As far as writing was concerned, he used a long stick at one end, of which he had whittled a long, fine point. Ink he had none, so he used the juice of blackberries or cherries. Little by little his diligence was rewarded. He succeeded not only in his studies, but also in his work, and a day came where he had put enough money together to keep his old father comfortable and happy. Besides this, he was able to save the great amount of 50 pennies. With it, he wanted to buy himself a new suit. One day he said to his father, "I am going to the marketplace to buy myself a coat, a cap, and a pair of shoes. When I come back, I'll be so dressed up you will think I am a rich man." He ran out of the house and up the road to the village, laughing and singing. Suddenly he heard his name called, and looking around to see whence the voice came, he noticed a large snail crawling out of some bushes. "Do you recognize me?" said the snail. "Yes and no. Do you remember the snail that lived with the fairy with the azure hair? Do you not remember how she opened the door for you one night and gave you something to eat?" "I remember everything," cried Pinocchio. "Answer me quickly, pretty snail. Where have you left my fairy? What is she doing? Has she forgiven me? Does she remember me? Does she still love me? Is she very far away from here? May I see her?" At all these questions, tumbling one after another, the snail answered, calm as ever, "My dear Pinocchio, the fairy is lying ill in a hospital." "In a hospital?" "Yes, indeed. She has been stricken with trouble and illness, and she hasn't a penny left with which to buy a bite of bread." "Really? Oh, how sorry I am! My poor, dear little fairy. If I had a million, I should run to her with it. But I have only 50 pennies. Here they are. I was just going to buy some clothes. Here, take them, little snail, and give them to my good fairy." "What about the new clothes?" "What does it matter? I should like to sell these rags I have on to help her. Go and hurry. Come back here within a few days, and I hope to have more money for you. Until today I have worked for my father. Now I shall have to work for my mother too. Goodbye. I hope to see you soon." The snail, much against her usual habit, began to run like a lizard under a summer sun. When Pinocchio returned home, his father asked him, "And where is your new suit? I couldn't find one to fit me. I shall have to look again some other day." That night Pinocchio, instead of going to bed at 10 o'clock, waited until midnight. Instead of making 8 baskets, he made 16. After that, he went to bed and fell asleep. As he slept, he dreamt of his fairy, beautiful, smiling, and happy, who kissed him and said to him, "Bravo, Pinocchio! In reward for your kind heart, I forgive you all of your old mischief. Boys who love and take good care of their parents when they are old and sick deserve praise, even though they may not be held up as models of obedience and good behavior. Keep on doing so well, and you will be happy." Last page, chapter 36. At that very moment, Pinocchio awoke and opened wide his eyes. What was his surprise and his joy when, on looking himself over, he saw that he was no longer a marionette, but that he had become a real live boy. He looked all about him, and instead of the usual wall of straw, he found himself in a beautifully furnished little room, the prettiest he had ever seen. In a twinkling, he jumped down from his bed to look on the chair standing near. There he found a new suit, a new hat, and a pair of shoes. As soon as he was dressed, he put his hands in his pockets and pulled out a little leather purse on which was written the following words: "The fairy with azure hair returns 50 pennies to her dear Pinocchio with many thanks for his kind heart." The marionette opened the purse to find the money, and behold, there were 50 gold coins. Pinocchio ran to the mirror. He hardly recognized himself. The bright face of a tall boy looked at him with wide awake blue eyes, dark brown hair, and happy smiling lips. Surrounded by so much splendor, the marionette hardly knew what he was doing. He rubbed his eyes 2 or 3 times, wondering if he was still asleep or awake, and decided he must be awake. "And where is father?" he cried suddenly. He ran into the next room, and there stood Geppetto, grown years younger overnight, spick and span in his new clothes, and gay as a lark in the morning. He was once more Mastro, and Geppetto, the wood carver, hard at work on a lovely picture frame, decorating it with flowers and leaves and heads of animals. "Father, father, what has happened? Tell me if you can," cried Pinocchio, and he ran and jumped onto his father's neck. "This sudden change in our house is all your doing, my dear Pinocchio," answered Geppetto. "What have I to do with it?" "Just this: when bad boys become good and kind, they have the power of making their homes gay and new with happiness. I wonder where the old Pinocchio of wood has hidden himself." "There he is," answered Geppetto, and he pointed to a large marionette leaning against a chair, head turned to one side, arms hanging limp, and legs twisted under him. After a long look, Pinocchio said to himself with great content, "How ridiculous I was as a marionette, and how happy I am now that I have become a real boy." All right. Okay, very interesting. I'm going to ponder that. I'm not going to comment too much. So a few things occurred to me. But once again, we can look at the symbolism behind this and see how it applies to us and our own natures. But yeah, very interesting. I hope you enjoyed that. Under other circumstances, I might sort of put on a few voices here and there, or be a bit more dramatic about it. But I'm glad to finish it anyway. So 36 chapters, and I'm happy I read that. So I'm not going to comment too much. I'm going to let that sort of sink in and have a little ponder about how it applies to well, our situation and our lives, because these are all allegorical, metaphorical, symbolic, representative of well, the journey that we're going through, and the search we are on, I guess, to find ourselves, our true selves. So I hope that came true now. Let me just go into chat. Okay, yeah, that came too grand. So yeah, okay, cheers, Juan Carlos. Thanks a lot, bud. As I said, I'm not going to comment now, but something very interesting to show you if you haven't seen it. So what I'll do is I'll put that on, and I've seen it before, but I definitely look forward to seeing that again. I'll pause it. Maybe it's 1:45 now, so I won't pause it too much, but you'll be fascinated by this video, and I'll get you to pay attention to what you were first met with upon entering. Yeah, so just finish off with Pinocchio. Anyone else remember? Anyone else remember it being a whale? So it was probably again a Disney representation, and they did the owl switcheroo. But I definitely remember it being a whale, and I did read the story to my son. So yeah, it's always a whale, and a whale would make more sense, I think, maybe associated with Jonah and the whale and the time spent in the belly of the whale. Um, so anyone else remember that as well? If you do, we'll put it in chat. Uh, I hope you enjoy that, and yeah, without further ado, I hope you enjoy this. And just again, regarding copyright, this is for absolutely entertainment purposes. The video is about, let me see, 18 minutes long. If I put it at time and a half, if I put it at speed and a half, or maybe quarter, speed and a quarter, it should be understandable, but we move through it a little quicker. Secret temple hidden underground in mountains, Damanhur. Is very, very fascinating, and I won't say much to begin with, but just as I say, pay attention in terms of what he encounters first of all, and you can let him narrate his way through his walk into, well, whatever it is. But I think it's definitely very deep and significant. So let me play that without further ado. Just see if that's coming through. Yeah, it is. Let me play that. So again, here we go. It's a secret temple hidden underground in the mountains and called Dam and Her. And where was it? I think it was in Hungary somewhere. Let me just see where it was. I think it was in Hungary somewhere. And they have a website themselves as well, Dam and Her. So afterwards, if you want any information, you can just Google search it and you can get a website. But let's play what this guy has to do. I think these people are probably children of Illuminati or some, you know what I mean, some sort of privileged groupings that get to see this place. But yeah, let me play and pay attention to what they first encounter. So, okay, then I go back to the start. What he first encounters. One central source to all the luminaries. Pinocchio, all Pinocchio's attributes. All the trees, look at that. This is Aristarchus, friends. Heart. Hmm. That's wonderful, isn't it? Ooh, naughty boy. Resurrection Sunday. Look at that, isn't that wonderful? Yeah, I'll measure. I won't pause it now because it just kind of goes around. It's just the first room on entry. Yeah. Come to the heart of the immaterial. All the caverns of the mind. Woman was smoking a big doobie there. Wouldn't blame her. Like, you probably wouldn't need it, right? It actually looks a bit like my own Steve when he was younger. I'd kind of like him actually. Fucking hell. Tranny, trannies are us. Steve's not a tranny. I've seen his willy. Yeah, just comment. Remember Dave Bowman's final trip when he ends up in the timeless room, which in which he ages and goes from being a young man to an older man, and then is regenerated or rebirthed in the form of a fetus within the womb. So Lampwick comes to mind there. Look at that, and it's a continual rise upward. So remember the A pointing to the apex, the crown chakra, the heart of the immaterial. We've got three hearts: the heart of the immaterial, the heart of the material, and the heart of the heart, bridge between the material and immaterial. Mountain. So we notice all the tree references. Mountains are with decapitated trees. If you want to, if you want to go down that road. Otherwise, tell me what mountains are. Everything is. We live on the back of Aristarchus, so fundamentally, we live on the stump of a giant tree, giant crystalline tree. which in the decayed form, this is the carbon base, decayed form, original crystalline. So yeah, that's what mountains are for me. Definitely haven't shied away from that idea, and it plays an integral role in my thinking anyway. But this is fascinating, isn't it? So another bit to go. Labyrinth of the mind, yeah. She's lovely, isn't she? Come into my secret passage. Oh, here we go. What is this? Mm. Oh, so it was in Italy. Okay. Um, I don't think I've seen the follow up there. Definitely be looking at that after I exit here. But what do you think? Very, very interesting, isn't it? And not pushing anything on anybody. I know very little about it, but fascinating, fascinating. So there are many truths to many doors yet to be opened, and many truths yet to be uncovered for us. I don't think the guy here. When is that? 2017. He didn't mention anything in terms of flat Earth. He talked about evolution and the universe at large. So he's probably still stuck in his Big Bang mind. Whereas us have moved beyond that. Well, what do you make of it as an individual? I'll put that link in chat for anyone who wants to see it. And there's also a website. Also a website you can seek out. There's a link itself. And oh, is it? Don't tell me the audio was gone. It was. Oh, it's okay. Well, okay. Well, I had it on. Oh shit. Sorry about that. Okay. Hopefully it wasn't gone for too long, wasn't it? Throughout the whole of the thing. Yeah, that was my fault. Now, sorry about that. Well, I put the link in chat here so you can have a look yourself. I didn't pass too many comments on it. Okay, didn't pass too many comments on it. But fascinating stuff. There wasn't too much talking. You didn't miss out on much, but yeah, sorry about that. Now that's an oversight of mine. Fascinating though, isn't it? Fascinating, and I said I'd play that. The one thing I want to get to, and I'll probably have to wait till the next time, is this. I'm looking forward to going through this. Um, Ice Age map. Ice Age, Ice Age, Ice Age. Confirming flat Earth. So I'm definitely looking forward to doing this. I won't do it tonight now because it's after going past time, not past time, but like it's pretty late, 1:10 past 1. But looking forward to going through this next time and just maybe seeing what it presents. It'll be a new one on me, so I'd say that I won't look at that myself until the next time. Yeah, okay. I don't think I'll say too much more tonight. You still hear Baldy Cats. I'm surprised at that. You probably weren't paying attention, or if you were, you won't have too much to say about this stuff. You'll brush it off as being mystical, airy fairy sort of stuff. I certainly don't look at it that way. I don't pretend in any sense to be able to decode what's going on. But certainly, a few things do occur to me. I did comment about the 2001: A Space Odyssey and the ending scenes where Dave Bowman, a bow is an eight man, rainbow is in Ra, bow or in Ra, eight, Ra is the sun. And lo and behold, when you look into Aristarchus, since my screen is still sharing, when you look into Aristarchus, it's on its side now, but there you can see the eight. So if I just rotated that 90 degrees, and I won't do that now. This is what I was talking about earlier on. Every layer uh, being the same as the layer beneath it, right? So ever decreasing and ever increasing depending which way you have it. Again, this is the crater on the moon. So when we look at it this way, what appears is we're looking into it, right? So it is extended from the setting. Whereas if we rotate it 90 degrees, it's the exact opposite way. It looks like it's distended inwards. And well, in one big sense, this represents the penis and the vagina, where one is sort of inversion of the other. But yeah, you can certainly see the eight in here, amongst many other things. Probably the most it's a wonderful image that you'll ever examine or you'll ever gaze at. And I recommend, you put that link in chat as well. I recommend that you download this and just gaze into it for a while until things start to sort of pop out of you and make sense. You're welcome, uh, Spirit. Yeah, I mean, just kind of so many things I could talk about and spend ages on as well. I generally end up in a mess, but I am definitely going to sort of cut to the chase from here on and just say what I have to say. Yeah, I don't have much more, I suppose, for tonight. Oh, just I was looking at this up. I think it was Daniel Field was asking about Einstein. Where was he buried? Well, we find that Einstein is buried at Arlington. Is it Arlington Cemetery where JFK? I know. Is it Arlington? No, it's not Arlington. It's Princeton. Where is it? Princeton. Yeah, Princeton, New Jersey. But it turns out that there's no last words. There is no tombstone or anything like that. He chose to be cremated. It turns out as well that his brain has gone missing, and Albert Einstein's brain goes missing. It's the link I'll just bring up here. So you can go through that yourself. I think this is loaded with clues as well. Here we have a Thomas Harvey who took the brain in 1955, but it goes missing, and yeah, all storytelling. If we examine pictures of a young Einstein compared to an old Einstein, we're dealing with different man, different character. Someone else has taken over the role, so it's not surprising that his death details are very vague and a bit suspicious as well, considering his fame. It's interesting here. His brain was dissected into 240 blocks. Here we have our 24 again, but yeah, again, these are characters presented to us. Einstein is another, Newton is another, Copernicus is another. It's a character playing the role. Well, even if there isn't a character at all, there isn't any character. Copernicus or no one's playing the role, but Einstein certainly there was someone playing the role. But yeah, when we realize they're just doing a switcheroo. Like with Bob Dylan, there's been about three Bob Dylans and many other stars that are put before us. Yeah, you have different characters throughout the lifetime of the character themselves. So yeah, all of this mystery and all of these unusual sort of circumstances can be understood in that sense. So yeah, there was no Einstein per se. The Google image Einstein's wife, and there you find the tranny. It's a man in drag. It's a man in drag. It's all a joke in a big sense. Uh, uh, but we were always meant to see through the joke. Einstein is one stone, one stone. The stone is the S tone, which is the TH. Be, he, me, TH, behemoth. Um, the theta, the one and the zero. All there is, the countable, the uncountable, the material, the immaterial. So yeah, I don't have any other links opened. Just this one is interesting. I mentioned it before, just earlier on, in relation to Tom York and Radiohead and 9/11. Right. Well, if this comes up, here we go. This is the Oculus Mosaic. It's the flat Earth map. All these continents are not continents in any sense. They're just the areas that stick up uh, from above the water, the inundating water. And these are all accurately scaled, and what you need to do is to piece them together in the proper order. One of the keys is this, what you would recognize or consider Antarctica, Antarctic. So everything is mirrored. So instead of the continent at the bottom of the globe Earth, Antarctic is understood to be along the rim here, the outside rim. And this is the Arctic Ocean, right? And this is the central piece. And all of these continents then have to be fitted in around it, right? So you can imagine how you might do that. Let's just say, for instance, here we can even see a gap for Greenland to fit in, slot in nicely here, and America, just like a jigsaw piece, would slot in here, and then we have Asia, which would go around the top, and northern Europe and Europe in general slot in. That's three pieces fitted in. Now we need to fit in the other pieces accurately, and that's where, for me anyway, and I haven't done this because I'm not too bothered about it, but I certainly would know how to go about it. How to go about it. That's where the dodo, or the latest version of the dodo, comes into things by Julian Pendar Hume, H-U and me, Hume. Julian, the Julian calendar. Remember I was talking about earlier on, we changed from the Gregorian to the Julian calendar back in the mid 1800s or something, and people lost 15 days. That was for me for the purposes of having Easter Sunday uh, last year to coincide with the old date of the new year, which was April 1st, or Fool's Day, or Dodo's Day. So Julian Pendar, Hume, Arthur Pendragon, and Hume again, H-U and me. This is, look at the name here, Christin, Jones, Mr. Jones, Mr. Jones, I haven't sang that in ages actually. You walked in the room with your pencil in your hand. You see somebody naked and you say, who is that man? You try so hard but you just don't understand just what you're gonna say when you get home. Something is happening but you don't know what it is. Do you, Mr. Jones? Interesting, David Jones Locker as well, and Andrew Ginzel, G-N-Z, and there we have the L at the end as well. So very interesting. That's to be found beneath, there we have the I in the center. That's to be found beneath the World Trade Center in subway station Chambers Street, Chambers of the Heart Street, Hard Earth. So, you know, all of these clues are placed for us. We even have everything is scaled accurately, so we even have the the barrier, or the sky barrier, if you will, included here. So we have the equator along the center, the Tropic of Capricorn, the Tropic of Cancer, the Arctic Circle, and then the inner barrier inside, behind which we find Aristarchus, although everything else outside is Aristarchus as well. And here we have, with the red, here we have where the barrier meets the land, meets the waters beyond. And how would we look for dimensions here? Well, this is where the spherical coordinate system, as applied to the spinning ball Earth, comes into things. Everything is reversed. So we could do a good job of modeling that up. There's one other key as well, and yeah, I've always this is just one other thing, but you know, why haven't I sat down and put some time into any of this? I could write about 10 books. And but yeah, I've always been expecting an end to come, and when the end comes and a new beginning, there'll be no need for any of this, you know. But yeah, if I can, I don't know, I can't imagine things continuing on as they are. But if I do, I don't know, accept, I don't know, get back into living, maybe I certainly would have enough projects to last me now for the rest of my life, but definitely spend lots of time on doing these things and presenting a coherent model of the flat Earth anyway, as you know, presented to us, and just following the clues. And I'm sure it would be, we could match it up to, or we could test it in many different ways as well. But as I said, that's not to the forefront of my mind anyway. But it's just very interesting, isn't it? Again, 9/11 plays a massive role in all of this, and two become one is the overarching sort of message. And yeah, notice how oval it is, and how much like a rugby ball it looks. You know? We're told that on a heliocentric model that all of the planets revolve around the sun in an elliptical fashion, while if we have the Earth stationary and everything else moving, well, how do they move in an elliptical fashion around the center of the Earth, around Polaris? So it's very interesting, isn't it? If anything else, and look, I might be wrong about all of this, but fucking hell, if I am wrong, fantastic story it tells anyway, and it's I guess I sort of piece it together myself, but there's nothing new under Aristarchus. I mean, I'm not coming up with anything here out of the blue. I'm not pulling anything out of my arse. But yeah, it's about the last link I have up, and yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. Damn it, her. I'm sorry about the sound as well. You can put it on yourself and take it from there. Okay. You ask, Irving, how you doing? TT, I'm not sure how long you've been here. I hope you saw Daman her video, and I see you're saying hello to Kelly Yuga 2758. Maggie, how you doing? Hello, Maggie dear. Not sure how long you've been here as well. I hope you did see Daman her as well. If you never came across it, definitely worth looking at the video. Let me post that link in chat again. There you go. That's what I played earlier on, and as I said, they have a website as well where you probably can go into more detail. I just thought it was very interesting, fascinating, in fact, and you can be absolutely sure there's a great story being told there for us to be able to decode it or possibly put an interpretation to it, which applies to us fundamentally. Maybe just post that image of Aristarchus. You can download that image. I would suggest rotating it 90 degrees to the right. Note the time, note the title, Up Close and Personal. There's no separating the external from the internal, but also note the date of release, image release, which is the 25th of December, which is the birth of Jesus, or the birth of the Son. Before Aristarchus was named Aristarchus, we're told it was named Balthazar. Balthazar was one of the 3 wise men who brought the gift of myrrh to the baby Jesus, we're told. So again, all allegory and all representative. Okay. Okay. Okay, if there's nothing more, I'm happy I finished Pinocchio, and maybe over the weekend, or I'll squeeze a few more hangouts in. Definitely time to I think this Easter marks a massive something massive, and I think we're being prepped for it. And I definitely think that 2019 is the year for some massive transformation. To become one is the theme, as I say, in opposition to one becoming two with the Titanic and the year of wars, rather the year of discordance, or the century of discordance. And now we are 100 years later, met with the collapse, the burning to the ground of Notre Dame, Our Lady. And as I say, Easter Sunday, the 21st April, which is 421, and 421 years since the discovery of the dodo. I don't know that one actually, Spirit. When I sound easy to learn it, but when Irish eyes are smiling, and the whole world smiles with you. And when Irish eyes are laughing, and that's what you do. Yeah, I definitely want to learn, right? I will enjoy singing that as well, but it's a bit late here, so I'm definitely going to go and leave you with the usual parting glass and say thank you very much for tuning in. Keep at it. We're made of sterner stuff, and as I say, this is all your story. It's there waiting for you to put together. And this shit is easy for us, I think. All about the proper context, and once we realize that everything is central to us, then we can soar in terms of understanding anyway how we fucking deal with this reality. I don't know, but I think everything is sent for a reason, and everything is prescripted, and the end game is here. I think so. When we look at movies like Avengers coming out this year, if it's not out already, with the title Endgame, look at the Game of Thrones. Throne is the crown of thorns. North. This is in its final season, which is, you guessed it, season number 8. So let me leave you with the parting glass and say thanks a lot. So until the next time, which hopefully won't be too long, and maybe next time I'll come back and give you my thoughts on Pinocchio. when I've had time to mull it over and consider it. As I said, the reason I started reading it in the first place is because somewhere along the line it was mentioned that this was held very dear by Masons, the gaggles of Masons everywhere. So there are great lessons to be parted with or to be learned from it, I think. So, okay, and speaking of parted, this is the parting glance. So keep down the road. Oh, all the money that e'er I have spent in good company, and all the harm that e'er I do, alas, it was to nobody. And all I've done for want of wit, to memory now I can't recall. So fell to me the parting glass, good night, joy be with you. If I had money enough to spend, and leisure time to sit a while, there is a fair maid in town that sorely has my heart beguiled. Her rosy cheeks, her ruby lips, now she has my heart enthralled. So fell to me the parting glass, good night, and joy be with you. Oh, the comrades that e'er I had, they're sorry for my going away. And all the sweethearts that e'er I had, they wish me one more day to stay. It sends and falls into good luck that I should rise and you should know. Gently rise and softly call. Good night, and joy be with you. Gently rise and softly call. Good night, and joy be with you. Okay, good night, friends. I love you, Steve.